5 favorite.
Seems like somebody thinks they know something with this horse who went off at a gigantic price on debut and was elevated to victory. He now goes first off the claim, facing winners for the first time in here, and is taking all of that early action.
He makes a beautiful appearance on track. We're going to see him in a moment. I just saw him off screen. Gum Island, Eric Cancel for Linda Rice, claimed off of Bill Mott.
A move that we don't see that often with Bill Mott, dropping horses in for a tag when they haven't been quite as successful at the maiden special weight level. Is he finding his friends today? I'm not sure.
It's a big price on a horse contender in here. It's one of the better numbers in this field. We're having some technical difficulties. We'll try and get a look at the majority of these runners here coming up. We may not have that ability, though. 7-5. This horse, the 6 Indian Quest, was 43-1 first time out. It was a first-time starter for a barn that, you know, doesn't send out a lot of winners, doesn't have a lot of horses, nearly got up to win, and here's a look at him. He makes a great appearance here on track. Start number 2. You've lost all that value. 7-5 top pick. He did run very good first time out. It's tough to run big in your debut at a mile distance.
Absolutely, and was running in a spot where there were some more highly thought of horses. And while he didn't take any money that day, I agree, he did run well and certainly has every right to take a step forward in this spot coming up. Rob Falcone obviously seeing something he liked to drop in a claim on this horse and find this spot for him. And I know this is a horse that you ultimately had some interest in, but just on principle, don't you hate seeing 43-1 and then 6-5 next time out?
It's the way this game works. You run very good in your debut, and then value, it's just gone. Let's check in with Richard Migliori for more as we get set for this opener coming up. Mig.
Yeah, I did get a good look at them, Greg, as they were warming up, and a couple really stood out. We'll start with the 3-horse, Brown Don't Stop. This horse made a really nice impression on the racetrack. He's coming in off an eased line, but he faced much, much tougher, and I really like Brown Don't Stop. He's ridden by Danilo Grisales Rave. People might not be familiar with him, but this was a leading rider in Chile, and we've seen some great riders come out of Chile over the years, maybe most notably Jose Santos, Hall of Famer, Kentucky Derby winning rider. And so this is a rider people can have confidence in. He, like I said, leading rider in Chile and trying to gain some traction here on the Irish circuit. He's my top selection, Brown Don't Stop. Like him on paper, despite that ease line, probably why we're getting 4-1 here, 9-2 now. But all of his other races, I think, are competitive and make him tough in here. The 5 Eric from Miami, beautiful impression of him warming up. He dropped to the maiden 40-11 last time for Barry Schwartz as a homebred for his Stonewall farm. He looked fantastic on the racetrack, as did the 6 Indian Quest, who really framed up beautifully. You love when horses bow their head and use themselves properly the way Indian Quest did. And people that aren't familiar with his former conditioner, Cleveland Johnson, Rob Falcone claimed this horse from him first time out. Extremely good horseman, just lower profile, was a great groom, actually groomed Eternal Prince, who I won the Wood Memorial right here on Aqueduct, but a terrific horseman, very capable, like I said, just maybe not garnering any headlines. So, don't be fooled just because the name you're not familiar with. There are a lot of good horse people behind the scenes.
Big thanks. We're getting set for this opener coming out. Pick 5 pool closing in on $120,000 and growing. I feel like Brown Don't Stop is sort of the Honor Marie of this opening race at Aqueduct. That's the buzz horse for the Derby.
I think that's a generous statement. However, I kind of agree. I picked this horse
Everyone's
as well.
on this horse, it seems like.
I think that he ran a little bit better than it seems over his last couple of races, the last one notwithstanding. And this is his maiden victory where he was able to sit a nice stalking trip and surprise at 9-1 in this race when stretching out to the 1 1/8. And I think that you could argue he might just not handle a wet track. He didn't on debut in that off the turf race. He didn't last time out going a 1 1/8 over a sloppy sealed surface. And you could also argue he was against the track 2 back. He was in the Gander facing tougher horses 3 starts ago. When you go back to 4 races ago, it was this race. And he is the horse that has not been offered for as low of a price tag as any of his other competitors in this spot.
See what happens here. 4-1 as they load up on Brown Don't Stop, Orlando Nota Barn. Meanwhile, this is a ton of action on Indian Quest here. Even money. I don't think anybody foresaw this happening here with a second-time starter.
Well, it's either going to be a they knew type of situation after
4-5
they
now.
Really didn't know first time out. We'll see what we get from him as he faces winners.
Manny Franco for Rob Falcone. Start number 2. Got up to victory via DQ, although ran very well. Just missed by a neck and blew by the winner on the gallop out. And that's first out effort. There he is, trying to officially cross wire first for the first time in his career. We're set for the opener. Let's go upstairs. Chris Griffin to kick off the meet.
And they're off. Pretty even break, and there's Rockstar Boy with early speed. Rockstar Boy right out to the front. Ava's Uncle Billy is towards the inside. Now we'll tuck right in behind this leader, who's up by 3/4 of a length, and immediately backs off the early pace as they start to join this leader now. Ava's Uncle Billy is going to move through down at the inside as they hook up with the backstretch. It's now 1-2 Rockstar Boy and Ava's Uncle Billy. Just off of them, Eric from Miami is in the 3 path. Up on the 4 outside, there is Indian Quest. Brown Don't Stop is now in the clear out in the center of the racetrack. The early trailer is Gum Island, 23.57 for the opening quarter mile, and a neck in front is Ava's Uncle Billy. Ava's Uncle Billy with Rockstar Boy. They continue to duke it out here, 1-2. Just behind them at the rail, that's Eric from Miami, and Kendrick Carmouche just watching the action here. Ground-saving journey as they move into the far turn. 46-4. The half-mile time. Under drive now as Indian Quest is in the 4th position. Brown Don't Stop. Wanted to be in the clear in the center of the racetrack. Has got a wide run, but here comes Brown Don't Stop, who's on the move. It's Brown Don't Stop who's ready to challenge for 3rd. Rockstar Boy is the new leader. It's Rockstar Boy who's trying to kick away. Ava's Uncle Billy is in for the fight down towards the inside. Battles on. Eric from Miami and Brown Don't Stop is trying to put together that momentum on the grandstand side. Rockstar Boy and down at the rail still Ava's Uncle Billy, and they continue to be 1-2 as they approach a final furlong. It's still Rockstar Boy, Ava's Uncle Billy. Now Indian Quest is joined by Eric from Miami, and Eric from Miami is bursting on through in between horses. Eric from Miami, Indian Quest. Photo finish in the opener. Photo finish, Eric from Miami and Indian Quest. Finishing 3rd was Ava's Uncle Billy in 1:37.3.
Eric from Miami, the 5 on the inside. Indian Quest, the second-time starter on the outside. Photo finish to kick off the meet.
Well, I think no matter what, you could say that he didn't necessarily run like a 4 to 5 shot should in the opener with Indian Quest on the outside, Eric Miami from Miami on the inside. And it really seemed like up until the late stages of this race, Greg, that the pace was going to hold together. Not the case in the final few jumps. That's a close one. I'm inclined to say outside. Yeah, it looks like outside. Going off at 4 to 5.
Wow. Manny Franco may have just timed this perfectly on Indian Quest, and he has 6 unofficially put up as your winner. Never in doubt. Wow. We said this during the running of the race. No matter what happened, the horse could have won by 5-6 lengths. Way too much money bet on the 6.
No, he was completely overbet in this spot, and I get it. They knew that he was going to run well, but when you look at those 4 horses all within such close margins of each other at the finish, it's not like you want to take a super short price on a horse that was 44-1 last time out on principle. He won today, but just over time, this is not a move that's going to be successful for wagering as you go along in the game.
Wasn't that big a price. He's only 43-1.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Let me correct myself.
4 to 5 on Indian Quest. Manny Franco all out to get this victory. Eric Miami ran a big one here, but yeah, Indian Quest, good for him. To get that win here. Now,
sharp claim.
Undefeated it was by Falcone. Claims this one for $40,000. A horse only cost $47,000. And able to get that victory to kick off the card. And we start this Belmont at the Big A meet with a 4 to 5 favorite.
You start with a winner, though.
Yes. And we have an objection, so hold your horses. Yeah, we'll see if we can get a look at the head on here. Apparently, we'll see what happened. But yeah, the 5 saying interference here with this 6 horse. See if we can get a better look at it. Tough to tell from the initial angle that we saw on off camera here. We're getting a look at what happened.
I mean, this is the true first way to start the meet, right?
With a little drama.
With a little chaos, a little anticipation.
All right, so let's see if we can find anything here. The 5 horse, that black and white cap to the outside, your eventual winner.
So far, so good. Little inside coming in a little bit. I don't know. It seems a little bit like a trading of paint to me. What do you think?
I didn't think there was a lot there. And the worst of it came, it looked like it's hard to tell where exactly that wire is. I mean, Manny Franco gets right up to that line. Did he cross it? Let's go to a man who's been in this position hundreds of times before. Mig, what'd you think?
I don't see anything but good, clean, hard race riding by both riders' parts. You understand a rider taking a shot. Kendrick here saying, well, let me put it in the steward's hands. But I didn't see anything that would remotely warrant a disqualification, guys.
But having said that, maybe we keep Mig on here for a second. Mig, if you're Kendrick Carmouche and the connections of Eric from Miami, you're just doing your job, taking a shot here, aren't you?
No doubt. Listen, you can't ever knock a rider. He's doing the best he can for his connections, for himself, and for the betting public. But honestly, when you watch this, it shouldn't take very long to dismiss this. This was one of those things. He was coming out slightly. The other horse leaned on him slightly. This was nothing but good, clean race riding from both riders.
All right, so you agree?
I do. I don't think there should be a change made here. The margin was so close, and I think if anything, they're both leaning on each other a little bit. Maybe the first move, Indian Quest moving in slightly, but I don't think he crossed that line.
All right, we'll see if this is a quick one here. It seems like this victory will be upheld by Indian Quest. We will wait and see. If so, it's a 4-5 favorite over a 7-2 shot to kick off this meet and this Thursday card on Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby week. Unofficially, very unofficially at this point, 6-5-2-4. And Manny Franco, who's had such a tremendous run, ended last year, again, leading the Naira Circuit in wins. And there it's been dismissed, no change. Picked up right where he left off in 2024.
Well, I mean, this horse is certainly lucky if you think about it. Put up via disqualification, survives an objection, and
Better
wins
to be lucky
against
than
winners.
good.
Yes, just like that horse who really ran to his name last week on the turf. But yes, this one upheld. I didn't really see much of a cause for any sort of disqualification in here.
4-5 favorite kicks off the Belmont at the Big A meet and our Thursday card here in South Ozone Park, New York. Manny Franco, Rob Falcone Jr., Beast Mode Racing, and Flying P Stable teaming up. Derby favorite is going to be this guy, Fierceness, the 2-year-old champ. His final prep for the first Saturday in May. It was brilliant in the Florida Derby. Is he ready for a repeat on Saturday?
Welcome back to America's Day at the Races. Pleased to be joined by Rob Falcone here, trainer of Indian Quest, who got all the best of that Bob late. What were you thinking as they were fighting down to the wire?
You know, in the mornings when he breezes too, he always gallops out very well. So he keeps going and keeps grinding out. So, you know, I knew he would keep fighting. But I didn't know who actually won the bob. It was pretty close.
It was really tight. But, Rob, you claimed this horse first time out, and you don't see a lot of horses in New York get claimed first time out. How did you identify this horse as a horse that you were interested in?
Just, you know, paying attention in the mornings, you know, not to only your horses, but, you know, you watch, you know, a lot more than people may think. You know, we made claims first time out. I like claiming horses first time out. We've done it a bunch of times. We've done it with, you know, good horses. We end up on good side of things with Castle Chaos. And, you know, this horse worked out for us, you know, today so far. But, and then we also, there's been a couple of times where it didn't work out for us, you know, but we take a shot claiming first time out. And, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, there's probably more upside, though, potential upside by claiming a first-time starter because no one really knows the depth of their talent yet.
Right, yeah, and you never know. They can improve, obviously, and get better with time and age. And, you know, sometimes they don't. But, you know, you do never know. And it's tough sometimes when you go to the sales and you don't have unlimited funds to spend or even 100,000, couple 100,000 or $1 million or so. You have to kind of find horses a different way and kind of wait for the right ones to, you know, turn up in those spots.
Well, obviously a very astute claim here. And see, guys, not only got to watch your own horse in the morning, but pay attention to the other horses training because you never know when there might be an opportunity to pick up a new one.
Yeah, using that time wisely in the morning. Rob Falcone Jr., well done. It seemed interesting that he would claim this horse for 40,000. The horse only sold for 47 before the horse had ever run, but must have seen what he liked in the morning, and this horse runs big here second time out.
Absolutely, and facing winners in this spot, getting the outright win, crossing the wire first in this spot for the first time, even if just barely doing so. But just being able to pay attention to how horses are moving in the morning and to keep your eye out for who you want to be joining your barn in the future, that is going to give you an edge in the claiming game within racing itself.
That's how this game can be very difficult sometimes. That was the difference between your top two finishers, getting your picture taken or not in the opener. Less than a nostril in the opener. Indian Quest, 4-5 favorite. Public right on here, barely. $3.90 for the win to kick off this Belmont at the Big A meet. We move on to the early pick 4. And a one-turn mile, $14,000 claiming race, all for sale for that price. Horses who have not won 3 races lifetime. And right now, Maggie T, current 2-1 favorite, Michelle Giangiulio.
And she's a horse that has run well in a couple of starts at the routing distance, even though the last couple of numbers sprinting have been a little bit better. I have some more confidence that she can go a little bit further in this race. And while you and I disagree a little bit on who's going to be the pace setter, we both don't think that it's going to be the number 4 Strange Fruit that Timeform US does believe.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here early on in this race. We'll have more in-depth analysis on this coming up. We got some movement, meanwhile, in the Kentucky Derby. Paid dividends for some connections in the very recent Derby pass with Rich Strike drawing in at the last moment and shocking everybody with a victory. Encino, a scratch, soft tissue strain for trainer Brad Cox, and Godolphin. Brad Cox said the horse seemed a little bit off after training on Tuesday morning, so is going to get 30 days off. Nothing too serious, though, hoping to see this horse down the line. And disappointing because the dirt debut, and the horse had won 3 starts in a row, but the dirt debut was that Grade 3 Lexington, was his best race yet. Ran
well and was forwardly placed, and I think that that's where you wanted to be, forward and towards the inside, and a great heads-up ride from Florent Giroux in there to get him over to the rail from the post 8.
So with that, that allows Epic Ride to draw into the Kentucky Derby, and John Ennis gets his first ever Kentucky Derby starter, horse who was 3rd in the Bluegrass behind Sierra Leone.
I mean, this horse has some ability. That was his first dirt start, ran a nice stalking 3rd behind 2 of the top competitors coming into this year's Kentucky Derby. This horse is not without a chance.
Unless fierceness shows up like he did in the Florida Derby, then everyone seems like their chances are dimmed a little bit. He was sensational in this race.
As many have said, will the real fierceness please stand up? And he did in this Florida Derby, winning by a historic margin to get this victory and running a race that's just faster than what we've seen from anybody else in the field so far. And you have to think he is one that has always showed the promise, has always shown the raw talent. It's just, can he overcome things if something doesn't go quite his way? That is still the question we are waiting for him to answer. Can he do it in the 20-horse field going 1.25 miles for the first time?
Yeah, no question. Look, he flopped second time out in the Champaign, but that was going into Grade 1 company in the second start of his career, and it was on a wet track. Then everyone expected such big things. He was a 2-year-old champ, and his Breeders' Cup was maybe the most exciting race of the entire weekend. It's not often you say that about the Breeders' Cup juvenile winner. And his Holy Bull, he was just flat in that race. It didn't work out for him, but then we saw what this horse is capable of. And if he can reproduce that type of race, everybody else is running for second.
Right. If he runs his Florida Derby, he's going to win this race. And he is a horse that has been spectacular and really phenomenal at times, showing us the sort of star quality that he is capable of. But I wonder if he's going to be one of those horses that needs things to be his own way going forwards. And for me, those aren't horses that I want to take at a super short price. And I also kind of wonder, is he going to be on the lead in here? I don't necessarily see that happening. Do you?
He may not need to be. He wasn't on the lead when he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he was just so sensational. We'll find out. I think actually a good thing that he's drawn out in post 17, and he'll be able to be clear and maybe get over and get good position. Sierra Leone, he's going to have post 2, trying to give Chad Brown his first ever Kentucky Derby win. He's going to make his presence felt late in the race. He's a deep closer in here, and he's a nose away from being perfect in 4 starts so far.
He's been really professional, really incredible with what we've seen from him, showing a lot of progressive improvement through each of his races so far. And when you think he's just so far back that he's not going to find the wire in time, he's been able to get that done 3 out of 4 times. And against a pretty significant track bias in that Remsen as well to finish second. You just have to ask yourself if you want a horse with that running style coming into the Kentucky Derby, especially from an inside post where is there going to be that traffic? Is he going to get stopped? I don't know. I mean, those are the questions that you have to ask about what price you're willing to take.
And we're going to have more on pace and what kind of running style has done best in the Kentucky Derby over the last 24 runnings coming up in just a little bit. You know, you talk about post 2, and here's the other Chad Brown runner, domestic product. That's where he wants to be eventually anyways, down to the inside. He's going to be there from the outset, so might be a good thing in the end. The other Chad Brown runner, domestic product. What do you think about his chances?
I don't necessarily know how good he is in comparison to some of the other competitors within this field, but you can't deny that he has run well in his last 2 starts, winning that Tampa Bay Derby as we're looking at here in that blanket finish, and beating Fierceness in the start prior to that when real Fierceness wasn't showing up that day, but at least that's a feather in his cap as well.
Fierceness doesn't run his A race. This becomes a completely different Kentucky Derby experience. It just makes the race very wide open.
Absolutely. I think you can make a case for several horses coming into this race, and some of those middle-priced ones that might get more of that tactical trip are where I'm going to be looking for this year's Kentucky Derby.
You can play the Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks, all the action we have at this meet, Belmont at the Big A and beyond by getting signed up. Started with Naira Bets. How do you do it? New members, punch in the code. You'll see here in a moment, get a $25 free play Kentucky Derby Day with Derby 25. Punch that in and sign up. You also get that $200 deposit match sign up bonus right there at NairaBets.com. Bet any track, anywhere, anytime. No better time to get signed up and started with the Oaks and Derby on the horizon. We're going to take a timeout. We'll be back. We've got the second coming up here, Belmont at the Big A. And we will talk, as promised, what type of running style has done best over the last 24 years since the year 2000 here in the Kentucky Derby. Take a look at it with Mig next.
Spun to Run. His brilliant speed figures were among the fastest of any 3-year-old at a mile or more, and he hails from the legendary Danzig sire line. Now, this multiple graded stakes winner, millionaire, and Breeders' Cup champion is passing his remarkable talent along to his progeny.
955, 200, 200 down, 2, in the back. Patrick, 200,000. Thank you.
Spun to Run, standing at Gainesway.
Experience the adrenaline-pumping, suspense-filled action of the Sport of Kings no matter where you are with Naira Bets. It's fast, easy, and secure. Download the app today and start winning with our lucrative weekly promotions, thrilling handicapping contests, and a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program. Don't just watch horse racing, be a part of the action with Naira Bets.
He's so impressive today, the others didn't even have a prayer. Catholic boy rolls in the run. Happy Travers.
Catholic boy standing at Claiborne Farm.
For centuries, the bond between horse and human has been forged in trust and hands-on care. Thoroughbred racing is combining that tradition with cutting-edge technology to raise our standards even higher. New investments in wearable biometrics, advanced imaging, and AI help optimize our safety programs.
That opening quarter mile was a quick one.
Every day, a commitment to improving their care. So win or lose, it's safety that runs first. To learn more, visit safetyrunsfirst.com.
There are a lot of theories of what kind of running style is most conducive to win America's most famous race. So Mig and I decided to look back at the last 24 runnings, going back to 2000, of what running style has done best in the Kentucky Derby. First off, Mig, let's look at pace. Why does the pace seem to be more amped up than usual on the Derby?
Well, it's the Kentucky Derby, and no rider is immune to getting caught up in that excitement, the hoopla of the Derby. Then add in a 20-horse field, so everybody is extremely position conscious. You want to come out running, get your position going forward, and not get slammed back or shuffled back, if you will. And then it's a straightaway for the first quarter of a mile. So horses are going to build up a lot of momentum. I think you add all that together, and you usually get too fast a pace or a faster pace than you should for a mile and a quarter.
A lot of handicappers like to have horses in this race that at least have tactical speed and be close early. Why is that such a big advantage?
Well, the further back you are, the more traffic you're going to have to navigate through. So if you've got a horse that has some natural speed and can be tactical, you're going to find yourself in a better spot, and that eliminates one of the pitfalls that could hurt you in the Derby.
These numbers, though, looking back, don't necessarily give any type of running style an advantage. We saw 4 horses over the last 24 years that won gate to wire. 2 of those horses were DQ'd. Taking those DQs out, though, 10 of the last 24 runnings were run by horses that were either on the lead or among the top 3 horses early, but 9 of the last 24 runnings were won by deep closers.
Well, again, it goes back to that pace, a mile and a quarter. You know, I think sometimes we talk about the Derby, and it's different than other mile and a quarter races. What we consider a fast pace for a normal mile and a quarter race isn't as necessarily what we consider a fast pace for the Kentucky Derby. But at the end of the day, when they go 45 or even a sub 45, that's going to aid a closer. And I just think some horses are good on the day. They get the right pace. Other horses can't quite stay the mile and a quarter, and that's where their stamina influence comes out.
And a couple of those deep closers that did win, they got tremendous rides, didn't they?
Again, you don't win the Kentucky Derby without getting things going right for you, saving ground, finding the gaps when you need them. You know, you don't want to hold the horse up when they've got run and then they go stale under wraps. So it just seems like some of the winners, almost like open sesame, as they needed the opportunities, they presented themselves.
And in the end, obviously the ability to get a mile and a quarter never hurts, neither does a little bit of luck.
Well, I do think that there is a certain amount that the racing gods play into who wins the Kentucky Derby, and I'm a true believer that if there's one with your name on it, you will get it.
Pretty interesting looking back, seeing all these running styles that are successful. Deep closers definitely have success in this race. Pace-wise, we expect to see Dornoch, obviously Track Phantom, and Fierceness all playing part of that speed scenario up front.
And I wonder if T.O. Password is another horse that's going to show some early foot based on his most recent workouts as well, and the horses that he's been keeping company with, a horse that can show that early speed in the morning, and he was keeping up pretty well with that one.
What will happen, as we talked about in the piece, let's bring Mig back in here. Usually Derby Day, just because of that race and what it means, we see an amped up pace, usually 45 and change. Sometimes we see even sub 45. What are we going to see on Saturday?
I think we'll have a legitimate pace. I think it'll be fast. I don't think they'll go a sub 45, but I could easily see them going 45 and change. It feels to me like there's 4 horses that have a similar running style that want that forward position, and obviously Fierceness being your favorite is one of those 4. I don't think he needs to lead to win by any means, and he got the best of the post position draws, with post 17 being drawn outside the other potential speeds like Track Phantom, Dornoch obviously from the inside. So I think he's going to be set up shop probably just off the pace. Johnny Velasquez is not a rider that takes anything away that comes easy to a horse. I think he'll come out running and make sure he sets up shop in that first flight, Greg.
No better rider on the big stage than you want than John Velasquez. We saw another horse eventually 6 months after the fact got DQ, but Medina Spirit, gate to wire. He did it with National Treasure in the Preakness as well. Very crafty ride. Right guy to have on a horse.
Absolutely. And we've seen John Velasquez time and time again get horses with that forward position in the right kind of spot. And he isn't a rider that's usually challenged as much on the front end as some of the others are. He can get away with it.
The second race, back to our opening day action, Belmont at the Big A. Here's our post-parade. I Feel the Need went by in the 2, Maggie T.
A horse that you think is going to be controlling the pace in here coming out of some shorter races.
Try It Again, another one with early pace.
This is the one that I think is going to be in front coming out of those sprint races. Ran too good to lose last time.
Gomez for Rudy Rodriguez on that one. Strange Fruit, 11-1.
And this is the one that neither of us really think is going to be the controlling pace setter in here. A horse that has plenty of route experience.
See if Rob Falcone Jr. could take the early double along with Manny Franco with the 5.
And this is a horse that is getting a little bit of clash relief relative to who she faced over her last couple races.
9-1, Synonymous, Omar Hernandez Moreno.
This horse has been outrunning her odds over the past couple of starts, kind of been underestimated and has been hitting the board.
And another one with route speed outside. Argentina Girl, biggest price out there, 18-1.
And this is a horse that has been facing some tougher companies since she ran well and got the win here for the non-winners of 2. This is a different level of horses with the non-winners of 3. And I don't necessarily know that it plays out for her from a pace standpoint.
Let's go back to Mig.
Yeah, guys, we're going to start down on the inside with the 1, I Feel the Need. Wayne Potts trainee, first time off the claim from Linda Rice. I don't think this horse handled the kickback from the slop last time, this mare, excuse me, I should say. And got way further back than she wanted to after not breaking particularly sharp. She looks great. Wayne Potts' horses tend to make really nice physical impressions, and I like everything I see from the 1, Feel the Need. The 3, Try It Again, won the Paddock check mark, no doubt. Loved everything I saw from Try It Again. Now, this is my top selection, but I do have some reservations. She is by Bustin' Stones out of a successful appeal mare. That's sprinter on top of sprinter. I wonder if she really wants to get the mile. It's the furthest she's ever tried, but I do think she'll be forward and in a good spot. So I went with the 3, Try It Again, despite those reservations about the distance. And the 6 horse, Synonymous, making her 3rd start off of a layoff, hasn't run since the end of March, and she looks great, dappled out. Boy, she carries a lot of weight, and I don't know if she was looked that heavy in her first 2 starts back off the layoff, because if she did, or even more so, maybe she's just a horse that needs to race into condition. I'm just curious about her at a big price because she's dappled out. Everything else looks great, but she is a mare that carries probably a little too much weight, it appears to me. But again, I don't have any reference point. I don't have anything to compare it to, because this is the first time I'm really getting a good look at her, Greg.
All right, Meg, thanks for the insights here. 9-1 on Synonymous. Meanwhile, favorite, Shoop, there it is, and that would be, again, the early double to Falcone Jr. and Manny Franco.
Well, I guess bettors think that he is on to having a good day here. And this is a horse that's just a logical player on paper, has run well over her last couple of starts. And she didn't fare well in a race that Try It Again was in, but that was a little bit short for her. She does a little bit better going further. And I think that over the last race 2 back, you could say that that was much tougher. She comes in here after running a good 3rd behind Shinful, who is a horse that would be what price in this race?
Very short. It was taking a huge drop last start, yeah, at this very similar level. And yeah, no one seems to have that kind of closing ability that Shinful has in this group, and that's who Maggie T lost to last time out, who's 3-1 right now. So we'll see if she's able to outlast this group here, forwardly placed. There she is stepping in, Luis Rivera Jr. for the Giangiulio barn. Next door, Jose Gomez, Try It Again for Rudy Rodriguez. Just missed against Joey the Fish last time out. It was just 2 for 18 coming into that race. That's one of the reasons I sort of shied away from Try It Again.
Which is completely fair, and you also have the distance questions with this horse as well.
Set for the early pick 4. Let's go to Chris Griffin for the call.
Argentina Girl. Is in. All set. And they're off. Argentina Girl breaks very well from the far outside. Breaking very slowly was I Feel the Need, who's the early trailer. Up top, it's going to be Try It Again up there, and Try It Again is now a nose in front with Argentina Girl. They're going to be a clear 1-2 as they get set to come out of the chute, and they are drifting out into the center of the racetrack. They are well off the rail, out in about the 3 or 4 path there, and now joined by Shoop. There it is from third. In behind them, that Strange Fruit, patiently ridden in the 4th position. At the rail is Maggie T moving forward. Synonymous is going to be 5 wide up the backstretch, and the trailer, I Feel the Need, 23-4 for an easy opening quarter. At the inside, there is Try It Again. In between horses, Argentina Girl. And a big number is a nose in front. Shoop, there it is. The 9-5 favorite is 3 wide here, just watching those pace setters. At the rail, it's Maggie T. Starting to move forward here. At the rail is now taking a clear 4th. Losing a touch of ground with Strange Fruit. Still wide is Synonymous, and far back still I Feel the Need, but is starting to warm up to the task, is still 8 lengths, the trailer. 47-4 for the half-mile time, and they continue to battle it out up front. It's Argentina Girl to the outside of Try It Again. Maggie T is cruising into it. She's the gray right behind horses here, is just looking for a seam. Might split rivals here as it does open up. There's a gap there if Maggie T can push on through. Argentina Girl's got the lead. Battling on is Try It Again, but Maggie T continues to build some momentum but hasn't pushed by the long shot yet. Argentina Girl is very stubborn to the outside. Maggie T is trying to just put her nose in front. Argentina Girl at a big number. Maggie T is gonna lunge late. Maggie T got up to win. Maggie T wins it over Argentina Girl. Finishing third was Try It Again. And Shoot, there it is, in 1 minute 38 flat.
Maggie T, not the way I think most expected she was going to win this race, if she was going to win. Sits off the pace this time and plenty left for the stretch.
And you were a little concerned that she was so far back in terms of where you thought she was going to be early in this race, and there wasn't really that rider intent to have her be forwardly placed, but I was like, it might be the right decision with those two going out to the early lead. Try It Again fading towards the inside. Big effort from Argentina Girl to finish second by a narrow margin, and this is why it pays to establish forward position in your races, because things like this happen and you almost win at 25-1.
And that's how in this game you can create a little value too. One of the main players in here, Maggie T, with the biggest price on the board underneath. A bit of a hard one to find. The form was just not there, recent form for Argentina Girl, but she really steps up today in defeat.
She did, and I mean, this is a horse that we knew she was going to be forward, but I didn't necessarily think she would be your pace setter with some of these horses coming out of the sprint races they were.
Michelle Giangulio, Maggie T, Luis Rivera Jr. trying new tactics this afternoon, and it pays off after they just missed going 7 furlongs last time out. The extra furlong today, decided to sit off the pace, and it pays dividends.
This was a smart move by Luis Rivera Jr. He sensed what was going on in front of him with 2 horses that had some intent to be forward, and he thought that he could sit in that stalking position. He got the nice split after saving ground, and he was able to muscle on through for the victory.
4-5 start to the card, now 3-1. And Shoop, there it is, went off as the 9-5 favorite, so a little mild upset here. Race number 2. Maggie T, third win of her career, 16 starts. Filly by Destin, the victory to kick off this early pick 4. We'll have the prices for you when we come back. We'll talk Kentucky Oaks when we return. Brad Cox, can he get a 3rd Oaks victory? The brilliant Monomoy Girl, she dares the devil in that monster upset. And can Tarifa deliver for him on Friday? We'll have a preview ahead. We're back on America's Day at the Races. Thanks for being with us. Opening day, Belmont at the Big A. Our program brought to you in part by Hillendale at Alapa. Sun shining down on us here in South Ozone Park, New York. And the sun shining down on Maggie T and her connections here, who gets the victory in this non-winners of 3 life claiming race.
A change of tactics that ended up working out for Connections, and a horse that had been consistent over her last couple of starts, and just one that had run well for the new barn since being claimed 4 starts ago. She is a horse that was involved in some pace that was starting to fall apart 3 back, then 2 second-place finishes, and now they decide to take her a little bit off the pace, go a little bit further with her, and it ends up working out over a huge long shot. We finished second at 25-1.
Only 2 starts into the meet and 2 very exciting stretch duels to kick things off. $8.30 for the win with Maggie T. This one owned by Playing the Field Racing and Final Turn Racing. Congratulations to those connections, Michelle G. and Julio, Luis Rivera Jr. We move on to the 3rd and the start of the first pick 6 of the meet. It's the Affirmed Success, named after the Iron Horse, who produced 38 triple-digit buyer figures in 42 lifetime starts. That is just amazing.
That's a feat that you have to think will likely not be accomplished again from the modern racehorse of today.
A man who knew him incredibly well, the Mig, and this horse, Mig, as you well know, showed up whatever he ran on. Wet, dry, turf, dirt, did not matter.
Yeah, he was one of those horses that just showed up and did his job to the best of his ability every time. And like you said, did not matter surface. He was a very good turf horse. He was obviously a very good dirt horse. Probably, capped out at about a mile was as far as he really wanted to go. But he was always going to make an impact. And as I say often, Greg, I like my horses the way I like my people, honest and hardworking. Affirmed Success embodied that. It was really an honor and a privilege to get the opportunity to ride him, win a grade 1 on him, the Carter, obviously. And then you can't say enough about the job Rick Schosberg did with him to keep him going for as long as he did and at that highest level and compete at the highest level on both turf and dirt. That only happens with a world-class horse trainer, and Rick Schosberg did an amazing job for Al Fried. And, I had a long history with Al Fried, so getting to ride him for Mr. Fried really was special. And for people that don't know, Al Fried wanted to be a jockey when he was a young man, was actually an exercise rider for Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons. He went on to a very successful career in other endeavors that enabled him to own horses like Affirmed Success.
Incredible horse. Passed away a couple of years ago at Old Friends in Kentucky at 28 years of age, and just talk about an iron horse. You just don't see that anymore.
You don't, and really having that versatility that we saw from him, being able to compete at the highest level on turf, on dirt, at a variety of distances. He was just a really cool horse that excelled at pretty much everything.
Well, this year's edition of the Affirmed Success coming up. Right now, it is Donegal Surges here. Todd Pletcher, sort of the up-and-comer in this field, who's the early 8-5 favorite. We'll talk more about it when we come back. Is there another Derby in the future for the coach? D. Wayne Lucas and Just Steel. He won a sprint race at the end of his 2-year-old campaign, but D. Wayne says the more ground, the better for Just Steel.
Cross-country Pick 5 combines the best racing from New York with top races from around the country in one bet. Find it in your track menu and play every race day. Races are posted weekly at NYRA.com/crosscountry.
RaceLens is the most in-depth product in horse racing with unique features found nowhere else. True odds, predictive analysis, and pace projection. RaceLens. It will change the way you follow horse racing and take your game to the next level.
It's Volatile in front as they pass the 16th pole. Volatile victorious in the Vanderbilt. 1 by 2 lengths.
Tremendous amount of talent with his win in the Vanderbilt, as well as a couple of his wins at Churchill Downs. Ran unbelievably fast. Very special family to me.
Perfect style for 2-year-old sales.
Just a gorgeous horse and throwing very athletic horses that I think will run.
Breeding in New York State just got a whole lot greener. Starting in 2026 with 2-year-olds and expanding in 2027 to include 3-year-olds and up, New York breds on the NYRA circuit will be offered purses matching the race's open company counterpart. That's a nearly 20% increase per race compared to 2023. Foaling season is in full swing. There's still time to take advantage of New York's better than ever state bred incentives. Visit NYRA.com/NYbreds for more info.
First is Just Steel. Just Steel under the wire to win it by 2.5.
He is really a gorgeous horse. He's from top to bottom, whether he is good enough to be in the Derby or any Derby, it doesn't matter. If you look at him, you're going to love him.
What I like about this colt is he's a massive horse. He's growing into himself. He's still a bit of a kid. He's definitely a contender. He's definitely got the ability to do it. He looks a lot like Justify. I mean, he certainly hadn't won 6 races in a row.
Just Steel storms to the front. Just Steel and Ramon Vasquez have 3/16 to go. Here comes Mystic Dan right up the rail, though, with a rail skimming ride.
He needs to move forward, and I expect him to.
If we can be in the top 3 in each of these 3 races, he's still going to be a great contender for the Derby.
Just Steel going to be deep at the top of the lane. He's 5 wide off the turn. And Timberlake and Christian Torres win the Rebel by 2.
Did you see what happened? No. He was 6 wide and they kicked him in the ass to get him out. Those horses can't overcome that. And now he's 7th, 8th, 9th. He's trying to make it up on the turn. Stay on the 11 hole. We just got to draw a line through him and go right back at him.
And we're off in the Arkansas Derby. It's Muth, Just Steel running huge in 2nd, Timberlake 3rd, and it's Muth coming down the stretch in Hot Springs to win it.
Well, as you might expect with a D. Wayne Lucas horse, he's got the most experience of anybody in this field. Look, this horse saved maybe his best for last in that Arkansas Derby prep. Outside of fierceness, one of the fastest run, even though it was in defeat, prep races of anybody in this field.
And you have to at least give him the credit for showing up against horses that are likely to be shorter prices than he will be coming into this race. He's been consistent outside of the Rebel, and he has run in every race that you kind of can to get into this Kentucky Derby. It was one of those things where you always knew as the field was shaping up that if he was healthy, he was going to be there.
2nd behind Muth, who of course can't compete in the Derby, being a Bob Baffert horse. This is a neat horse, and D. Wayne seems to think, even though this horse used to be a sprinter, he's a lot bigger, stronger, more physical now, that the further they go, the better this horse is going to be.
And I was also of that mindset of thinking that he was one of those horses that would excel sprinting and needed that cutback in distance. He's proved me wrong. He's been able to compete going a little bit further.
It's all going to be the first ever Kentucky Derby mount for Keith Asmussen, who got his first graded stakes win for D. Wayne. That was on Lemon Muffin, who he'll ride in the Kentucky Oaks, and we'll see if he can keep this string alive. They've been a potent combination together. So we get back to our New York action. Play the Oaks, the Derby, the entire meet. Belmont at the Big A, Saratoga, and beyond by getting signed up with NYRA Bets. Promo code for new members, Derby25. Get that $25 free play and $200 deposit match sign-up bonus right there at NYRABets.com. That $25 free play in the Kentucky Derby, so take advantage. Take a look at the Oaks field. And speaking of Lemon Muffin, Keith Asmussen, D. Wayne, post 5 now with the scratch of tepid Jen Alley, who comes out of the race and allows our pretty woman for Steve Asmussen to get in. It was runner-up to Tarifa last time out.
A horse that isn't without an opportunity and will work out a trip, likely from the far outside, to show some early speed. But Tarifa is one of those horses for the Brad Cox barn that has a similar profile to some of his Derby entrants in that she's had that progressive improvement. She's gotten faster in each of her last couple of starts, all of them being wins over her last 3. And she was impressive in here to run down a very game Our Pretty Woman. It was her fastest race yet. And you want one of those horses that is taking steps forward at the right time coming into these big races. You don't want them to be peaking too soon.
And as you look at your runner-up there, I know we're talking about Tarifa. She is very talented, trying to win her 4th in a row on Friday. The addition of our Pretty Woman to this race changes this race a lot, bringing more speed in.
It does, and you have to think that Joel Rosario is going to want to get some forward position from the far outside with her, a horse that has really done nothing wrong in her 3 starts so far and has also shown that progressive improvement, just like Tarifa, over her couple of races that we have seen from her in those 3 starts. So this is a big spot for her, but she showed last time that she can hang with some of the best in the division so far.
Tarifa Flavia Pratt will be aboard for Brad Cox. As you saw that resume, she's done very little wrong. 4 wins, 5 starts in her career, and coming into this Oaks on the right way. As Sarah said, each time out in those last 3 wins, improving her speed figure a little bit more. We'll see if she can take another forward step on Friday. Meanwhile, 2-year-old Champ had to wait a little bit for her return. She had a fever, was not able to go in the Devona Dale, so as a result, she's going to come into the Oaks with just 1 start as a 3-year-old, just FYI.
And this is a horse where they did have to go to plan B with her. She was a little bit late getting back to the races, but she is one where you know that she at least has taken that step forward from 2 to 3. She ran a faster race, finishing 2nd in the Ashland behind Leslie's Rose than we had seen from her as a 2-year-old. And while she was always that impressive physical, always looked like a bigger horse, might just be coming into her own at this time now. And I think 2nd off the layoff, you can expect that she's going to take a step forward in here. But Leslie's Rose, she's done very little wrong except for her Devona Dale. And this was a big return comeback win for her. 95 by her speed figure, posting that upset.
Impressive resume there for Leslie's Rose. And yes, it was the first start back of the year for the 2-year-old Champ, who's very talented, obviously. But if you like her, why shouldn't you like Leslie's Rose?
Exactly. I think maybe you have to look at one race where she was perhaps a little bit disappointing, but she still ran 3rd in a graded stakes race. And while she was a short-priced favorite that day, the race that she comes in on is one of the faster ones that she has to her credit and is just as fast as what we've seen from Tarifa.
Todd Pletcher. Good barn to have on the big day. We'll have a Rad Ortiz Jr., so she is not going to get overlooked.
No.
No chance of that happening. Going to be 2nd post to the outside in this race. A lot of just storylines in this race. The Oaks is loaded. Ways and Means. It looked like maybe the most talented 2-year-old filly of last year, and then she got beaten the spin away while running injured, but she came back with a very good one. She's so intriguing. I even think the other Chad Brown filly in the race is interesting.
I think that horse has a chance as well. Regulatory Risk is going to be a much bigger price, and I think this Oaks is much more wide open than some of the more recent years that we have seen. I could see 8 horses possibly having an opportunity to win this one.
Meanwhile, back here, Belmont at the Big A, it is the Affirmed Success, and Rotney at 9 to 5 will get on a fast track for the first time in the last 4 starts, but he has not been the same horse as we go to Maggie Wolfendale.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't the same horse in his last, though he was used quite a bit to contest the lead in that Tom Fool with eventual winner Super Chow. Now, whether it just kind of ripped the heart out of Rotney or maybe he emerged out of there with a little issue, I don't know. But we haven't seen him since early March. And yes, he does get on a fast track for the first time in a while, but it's not like he hadn't run well on a fast track prior to that disappointing poor effort. I mean, you just look 1 start back in the Save Florida Sandy where he drew away and won by 4 that day over a sloppy sealed racetrack. So looking at him here today, he was a little bit hot under the collar. It's a beautiful spring day, to be fair. And since they've gotten the tack on him, he's actually cooled out and dried up quite a bit. So I think that's always a good sign. I like to see that. It means that they're not nervous. They just maybe got a little bit on their toes on the walk over to the paddock here, but really nicely composed. I'm seeing the good Rotney, at least when I have been in the paddock to observe him pre-race. So we'll see what he does here. He is going to have to face likely pace pressure from the outside in number 5, Excellent Timing, who at the end of the day might just naturally be a tick or 2 faster than he. Sheriff Bianco's a little bit interesting. He had a heavy load back in 2023, making 14 starts. And by the end, even though he was still running credibly, I thought he looked like a tired horse for Linda, just not carrying the usual weight you've come accustomed to with her horses. And now coming back with that freshening in mind, he has filled out again. He's really rounded out in those hindquarters, which is always a good attribute that the good-looking Sheriff Bianco had. So I like what I'm seeing from him. I think it was really a much-needed break, Greg.
All right, Maggie, thank you. Get to the post parade here coming up shortly. 9-5 favorite Rodney coming out of the Grade 3 Tom Fool, where it was not his day as the beaten favorite in there, but really the last 4 starts for him, he has not been close to what he had been the last maybe 11 races or so. He's tailed off. We'll see if he can get back to what he was here, getting a little freshening. And
on Byers, he pops up with the triple digit every now and again, and usually can be in the mid to high 90s. That last one, a regression.
Here's Donegal Surges, who is surging for Todd Pletcher. Big effort last start.
The horse who is moving in the right direction as of now and should get a good trip.
Linda Rice with Sheriff Bianco. Eric Cancel aboard.
I like this horse a little bit. He's been ultra consistent. He's faced some of the best horses in the past and now comes in fresh.
Thrill of Eddie was just third behind 2 next out winners.
He'll have to get a little bit faster to compete with some of these on their best day, and I think the tote reflects that.
And probably the speed of the speed, as Maggie alluded to. Excellent timing.
A horse that did break through the gate last time out. Maybe don't hold that against him too much. I think he's going to the front as well.
So let's look back to the horse who actually opened as the favorite early on. Right now, second choice on the board, co-second choice. This guy right here, Donegal Surges for Todd Pletcher. Kendrick Carmouche will ride. And last time out, this was sort of his coming out party. Ran by far. And I know the buyer point was only a 1-point spread. Other figures you look at, it was a huge jump forward.
And I think it's always interesting to note when you look at different types of speed figures, how races really were run. And if this was more of a step forward than it looks from his race prior to that, he's definitely worth considering in this spot. And he's well spotted coming in here. And he's one of those horses that they always kind of thought something of when he was spotted as a 2-year-old in the State Bred Stakes races, running well in many of those to hit the board. And then you could also give him the excuse for his race 3 back when he was coming off the layoff. He really got steadied at the start in that race, and so he's run well in his last 2 starts, now off the bench.
Throwing that head around a little bit. We'll try and get Maggie's take on how he looks here warming up. Donegal Surges 2-1 right now. Kendrick Carmouche giving him his patented warm-up as we look at Rodney. So first start back since March the 2nd. He's the current 9-5 favorite. And this was a safe Florida Sandy on a wet track 2 starts back.
And he's just been very consistent over his last couple of races. And while maybe some of them haven't been quite as fast as the brilliance that we can see from him from time to time, he usually shows up and runs his race. Whether or not that's good enough to get the victory, you know how he's going to be in some of these races and where he's going to likely be with some sort of forward position. And he is a horse that I think drawing the rail simplifies where they need to be, at least to sort of get him into the clear. I just don't know if excellent timing might be a little bit quicker than him early.
He's had success with sitting off, though.
He has.
We'll see. Still 2-1 favorite in here. And again, first time he's going to get a fast track at his last 4 starts. You have to go back to November 24th for him. 9-time winner from 18 starts. He obviously brings the best resume in the field into this race. As we get a look here at Sheriff Bianco for Linda Rice, who's won over $600,000 in his 29 career starts.
And he was a horse that ran really well when stretching out in distance against some of the better New York breds at that time, running second behind Dr. Ardito in the Evan Shipman, running well in a variety of races that honestly you would have thought that he had no business running well in, and really performing on the dirt since making that surface switch. So he's been ultra consistent. He has been in the money for most of his races, and you have to just respect this kind of horse that's coming back for a 6-year-old year and has run well fresh in the past.
Not a lot of love on the board for Rodney right now. He's one of 4 horses in a 5-horse field between 2-1 and 3-1. Let's go downstairs to Maggie.
Yeah, like you said, Sarah, this is why I like Sheriff Bianco in here. I think that break was just really needed, and I think he is going to run here well fresh, because he also gets the right kind of setup where that might be the same case with number 2 in here, Donegal Surges, who can sit just off the pace. And I like the fact that, albeit going the 7 last time, he was able to lay just a touch closer, and he was just really well in hand throughout, always looked like a winner. As far as that aggressive warm-up that you saw, I will say this. Eric Cancel aboard Sheriff Bianco and Kendrick Carmouche set off at the same time, and Kendrick was on the outside. And so I think it just made Donegal Surges fairly aggressive when engaged to the inside by Sheriff Bianco. So I think it was just Kendrick trying to slow him down a little bit. He was very aggressive. he's moving really well out there. So I like everything I'm seeing from him. And this being the first time I've seen him since that 2-year-old campaign, he's really filled out, really that much more athletic too. So a horse, as you guys mentioned, trending in the right direction. A horse that I'll never be able to warm up to is number 5, Excellent Timing. Now maybe he's just able to run this field off their feet, and he does get a fast track for the first time, third off of that extended layoff. And I will say that his coats come around versus the first start back in March. He's dappled, he's got a great shine and healthy appearance to himself, but just a horse that is always underwhelming in my estimation. It never really went on physically, though his form has been consistent enough. We'll see what he does here and how much pressure him and Rodney apply to each other, Greg.
Yeah, that's sort of the race within the race. Thank you, Maggie, and thanks for that update on Donegal Surges and why he had that head so high early on. He actually becomes the favorite now, again, 2-1 here on the 2 horse for Todd Pletcher and Kendra Carmouche, just leaving your screen.
And I think everyone really sort of thinking that it is those inside 3 that have the best chance to be successful in this race, and maybe just the inside 2 more so. But Donegal Surges, while he doesn't have the same credentials in terms of who he's faced or how well he's done on the racetrack as some of his other rivals to his inside and out, he is the now horse with connections that you know you can trust.
And that last figure from him, beware, it's a 1-number horse. It was certainly the race of a lifetime, but everyone's trying to catch up to him if he can repeat that in here. But he's facing some very good company and more experienced company trying to repeat it in this spot, including that guy who just left your screen, Rodney, the 9-time winner for Mike Maker and owned by Buck Butler. As we get set for a load here momentarily, Affirmed Success, $100,000 purse here, 4-year-olds and up as we get set to start this pick 6. We were on together talking through these races in here. Gun Maestro, we thought potentially, if you're going to try and play a pick 6 ticket today, a horse where you can narrow in the next race?
I think so. I mean, I think that looking at the scratches in that race, it really simplifies things for a horse that ran well last time, has taken some steps forward for the new barn, and they're just finding the right kind of spots for him. So I think that that's a very likely single for many players that are playing the pick 6.
And then race 6, Bourbon Calling. Going to take a lot of money probably in that spot, 8-5 morning line favorite. We actually both picked against that horse.
Yeah, a horse that neither of us really have much interest in coming into that spot. I just didn't really see him as a standout in that field in comparison to the others that are going to be in there. And I think when you look at the turf race that we have, our first turf race of the day, that's a wide open race. You could make a case for 4 different horses in there, at least for me. The finale is pretty interesting. I think the short prices make sense, but maybe some creative first-time starters to go with. And then I think we're both a little bit suspect of St. Gaudens in race 7, a horse that is your morning line favorite at 7-5, because he just does not have a numbers edge on that field.
And he disappointed at a very short price last time out when he was in contention, but going to take plenty of money because of the barn he comes out of. That's Chad Brown, who's going to have, most think, a big say in both the Oaks and Derby coming up this weekend. As we get a look at Rodney, back to 9-5 favoritism now, as this 5-year-old returns, trying to reverse his fortunes. He was a winner 2 starts back, but he's run just so much faster races. That looked like, last spring, summer of last year, he could potentially become an elite sprinter.
Is there more sort of range in terms of the thoroughgraph numbers that he's run? Because on buyers, he kind of tops out near the hundreds and then will sort of regress following that. He'll run a top number and then have some sort of regression. Is that the same in the speed figures that you look at?
I mean, you look back to last summer, that race at Belmont in particular, before that huge 101 buyer, the race before that, he ran a number that would put him in contention with some of the Breeders' Cup sprint runners.
All right, good to know.
But he has not gotten back to that number.
Yes. And I think that's a valid concern, especially at a short price in a short field with other speed.
But yeah, even all of his 4 last numbers, a lot of horses come into play in this field. We'll see if that's the case, at least according to Thoroughgraph here. Mike Maker, Manny Franco, Buck Butler with Rodney from the rail. Public behind him at 9-5. There's the 4 stepping in. How far will the speed of this guy right here, Excellent Timing, take him with Dylan Davis for Rob Atras. Chris Griffin with the call. It's the Affirmed Success opening day, Belmont at the Big A, and our Fox Sports 2 coverage.
And they're off in the Affirmed Success. Excellent timing. Broke very well from the far outside. Is up by a half length. Rodney is trying to join this leader. Is down towards the inside here in second. In behind them, that's Sheriff Bianco, who will stalk from third. Length and a half in front of Donegal Surges, the second to last. The trailer. Thrill of it. Rodney has moved to the inside here and now put a neck in front. It's Rodney. The speedy Rodney takes him into the far turn, 22.39 for the opening quarter mile. Right there is excellent timing, who broke very sharply from the gate, is back to within ahead of the leader. And about to join them here, Sheriff Bianco from the third position, starts to move in closer, still 2.5 off the leaders. Far back still, Thrill of It, and Donegal Surges is the trailer. They get set to reach the top of the stretch. Rodney is trying to put away excellent timing. Sheriff Bianco has moved towards the outside. They went 44 and 4 for that half-mile time, and Rodney is widening the margin now. It's Rodney who's still 3 lengths in front. Sheriff Bianco is in pursuit of the leader, Rodney. Rodney is trying to put it away as approaching the 16th. Sheriff Bianco is getting closer but running out of time. It's going to be Rodney to win the Affirmed Success. Rodney wins it over Sheriff Bianco. Donegal Surges up for third, and 1 minute 9 and 4.
Class prevails, and a pretty early aggressive move there from Manny Franco to say, I'm going to retake this lead here and take command from excellent timing.
Absolutely, and a horse that we talked about not necessarily needing the lead to be successful, but drawing that inside post, you would have to think that he would have to establish some forward position, and that's exactly what he did. He was able to put away the other pace presence in this race, and I would be very surprised if this does not come back as one of his bigger efforts in terms of numbers that we have seen from him over time.
109 and 4. Final time, Rodney back in the winner's circle, 10 wins now from 19 career starts. And Manny Franco deciding, let's not mess around.
No, an aggressive ride, and ended up being the right decision. And sometimes when you see Manny Franco on a horse where he does commit to having that forward position, good things work out.
Rodney, Sheriff Bianco, Donegal Surges, excellent timing. Top 4 in here, 1-3-2-5 finish. Your favorite at 8-5. To kick off the Pick 6 on the first day of the Belmont at the Big A meet on our Fox Sports coverage. Manny Franco off to a hot start at the meet. After taking the opener, adds a stakes win here in the Affirmed Success on Rodney. Back on America's Day at the Races on our Fox Sports 2 coverage. It's brought to you in part by America's Best Racing. For the love of the race, visit americasbestracing.net today. Affirmed Success, it goes to Rodney, who takes command early in here and picks up the 10th win in 19 career starts.
I mean, he was aggressively handled from the inside, put away the other pace presence in this race, and you have to think that this is going to be one of his races that really has that number that pops that we have seen from him on occasion.
Dominant here. And this is the good Rodney. Good to see him back here. 5-year-old New York bred, son of Run Happy, who pushes well past, well, really onto $700,000 in earnings now with this victory. $5.20 for the win shirt. Bianco, Donegal Surges complete the trifecta, and the early pick 3, fairly formful beginning to the meet.
Yeah, absolutely. Horses that make sense on paper are getting the job done. We'll see if there's a little more chaos later on today.
Let's go downstairs to Maggie.
So pleased to be joined by owner, breeder, and, well, self-named Buck Butler. His nickname in college, Rodney, with the whole family. Loretta and the grandsons are here. And Rodney, he was just so dominant today.
He was. He does love it here in New York, doesn't he? You know, we've had some trouble bouncing it up a little bit, but he loves the company here in New York. So.
And it pays well as well to boot.
That's for sure.
Exactly. Now, you'll be well represented tomorrow, heading down. What time's the flight?
Flight's out at 8 a.m.
Of course, for the 8 bells with My Main Squeeze, cutting her back in distance to the 1 turn.
We are. Well, we've had some success there, and, no points for the Oaks, so next choice. It was the next choice.
Well, wishing you the best of luck. And, guys, I could hear you rooting from all the way up there. How much do you love Rodney?
A lot. A lot.
Is he your favorite?
Yeah. He's my favorite.
How many treats is he going to get? You going to go back to the barn and see him?
Probably, yeah.
Dude, I need those shades. Where can I get them?
Don't tell her.
Yeah, Buck says don't tell me. I'll ruin his fashion persona. Well, guys, congratulations. Always good to catch up with you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, and wishing them the best of luck tomorrow with My Main Squeeze. But the whole fam's here today for Rodney, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie. That'll be, and she'd look good in those shades, by the way. That'll be in the 8 bells. I really liked her going into the fantasy. Didn't fire as the favorite that day, but she had 2 very big races coming into that effort.
She did, and I mean, she has a chance cutting back in distance in this spot. I like that they're keeping her against open company to really see where she stacks up and giving her another opportunity to see if she can compete on a larger stage than the New York bred, because these races, they'll always be there for her if it doesn't work out.
Very exciting time for those connections. And, that one another homebred for Buck Butler and company. Let's take a look at the weekend stakes schedule coming up here at Belmont at the Big A. Tomorrow, a couple of graded stakes on the card, including the Westchester, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Saturday, Derby Day, Fort Marcy, Ruffian. We have the Alabama winner coming back and the Elusive Quality.
And it's going to be an interesting race because Randomized ran so well in that Breeders' Cup Distaff behind Idiomatic, who will be coming back this weekend as well, facing off with Pretty Mischievous. And it'll be interesting to see how the division starts taking shape moving forwards with some of those leaders returning.
So on that schedule, the Westchester coming up on our Friday action. $175,000 purse, grade 3. And post-time even money favorite, who was on a pretty nice win streak for Brittany Russell. 4 wins in a row, including back-to-back graded stakes here in New York.
And this is a horse that really had no business running as well as he did in this short, compact field to get the victory, because it seemed as though a horse like Super Chow was going to be alone on the lead. He was going to be pace compromised with some scratches in this race, and you did want to save ground and be more towards the inside on this day. And as you can see, Super Chow's drifting. He's all the way towards the outside. Castle Chaos getting that dream run up the rail, but he gets his nose down just in time to get that victory. Very game, very cool horse, overcoming quite a bit to win that.
A little bit lucky, because that Super Chow does that all the time. Sheldon Russell said he knew.
What was he doing?
That was the MO, but able to overcome it. Maybe that's just how good post time is. And back-to-back graded stakes, I should say Laurel and then here in New York. But we'll try and go back-to-back here in New York. So post time even money favorite to try and keep that streak alive. 8 for 9 lifetime. Just a neat horse. You love to see these horses that show up at the higher levels and just keep running their big races. We'll see if he can do it again. Meanwhile, here's a look at Messier in the Excelsior.
And he ends up being disqualified and placed second in this race, with Laughing Boy being a horse that was elevated to first in here. A little bit of trading of paint in the stretch, and Stords did see fit to make a change in this spot. And this is one of the horses that was really anticipated to do well in the Kentucky Derby back in 2022. Hadn't really necessarily gone on from what we had seen from him as a 2-year-old and early 3-year-old, but does come back with a pretty nice number in here, even though he ends up being taken down and put second. So I think you have to respect his chances coming in. We do see the head-on look here where Laughing Boy, he did kind of take the worst of it, and I don't think this was a worst call ever made. Do you?
No. In fact,
I mean, it actually benefited you quite a bit.
It did.
Didn't it?
I did not think there should have been a change. In the end, a 54 to 1 shot got put up. I'll take it.
Yes.
This horse, though, Messier was very exciting back as a 3-year-old. If he had a race second behind Taba, of course, he had that 100-plus Beyer speed figure the race before that. So there are high expectations for this horse for a long time. It's good to see him still around and still kind of in the mix as a top quality horse.
And I think prior expectations is kind of a theme of this race, especially when you look towards the far outside with a horse like Charge It, who will be returning as well. So I think these are horses that we've always sort of thought something of them, and we'll see how they show up now this year.
He's sort of a victim of just running way, way too good
Early
in the
on.
Dwyer.
Yes.
Everyone said, oh, now we have a super horse on the scene. He hasn't ever got back to that sensational performance, but still, he's been a pretty good horse.
He has been. He seems a little bit random at times with where he's going to show up with one of his bigger efforts, but you can say that he's faced some of the best of the best.
Well, as we were just talking about with Charge It, let's take a look at him in the Suburban. And, this wasn't that far off that lights-out sensational effort in the Dwyer in this 1.25 mile Suburban.
And at least you know that he can go a route of ground and get that distance of 1.25 miles. He was able to do so successfully in here. And I liked John Velasquez getting back aboard this horse, who was aboard for that blowout Dwyer win. And while he did have a little bit of trouble staying on the racetrack following that, he came back with a victory that he was supposed to win that race at Gulfstream. But this is one of those races that at least shows you that that one performance doesn't necessarily live in isolation. He can run big races from time to time.
That is coming up this weekend for you in the Westchester. It'll be on our coverage on Friday afternoon as we get into the graded stakes action here at the meet. Belmont at the Big A. We're going to talk more Kentucky Derby when we return. Scratch of Encino leaves the trio down to a duo for Brad Cox. Still got two pretty talented ones, including the Louisiana Derby winner, Catching Freedom. Another deep closer. Beat Honor Marie last time out, was third behind Sierra Leone prior.
Number 1 is Mo Donegal by Uncle Mo. And they're off in the Remsen. As they come on for the finish, and it's going to be tight here in the Remsen. Mo Donegal bearing down on the outside. It's Mo Donegal and early voting, and it is Mo Donegal to win the Wood Memorial. And it will be Mo Donegal to win the Test of the Champion, the Belmont Stakes.
Experience the adrenaline-pumping, suspense-filled action of the Sport of Kings no matter where you are with Naira Bets. It's fast, easy, and secure. Download the app today and start winning with our lucrative weekly promotions, thrilling handicapping contests, and a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program. Don't just watch horse racing, be a part of the action with Naira Bets.
Tonalist, a 4-time Grade 1 winner with 11 triple-digit buyers, including the Belmont Stakes and the Cigar Mile. He's already living up to his potential as a sire with multiple graded stakes winners, including Grade 1 winner Country Grammar and Grade 2 winner Tonalist Shape, plus multiple 6-figure yearling and 2-year-old sales. Proven on the track, proven in the sales ring. Tonalist, standing at Lane's End.
Racetrack Television Network brings you every race, from every track, on every screen, every day. With monthly packages starting as low as $5, RTN gives you great value and access to more live HD streaming and race replays than anyone. Visit RTN.tv today to sign up and watch on almost any device, including Roku and Amazon Fire. RTN has packages that start at $5 per month.
Catching Freedom made a splash on the Derby Trail when ringing in 2024 with a strong victory in the Smarty Jones on New Year's Day. Trainer Brad Cox brought him back to his winter base at Fairgrounds to train him up to the Risen Star, where he ran a respectable third behind Sierra Leone and set up well for a late closing victory in the Louisiana Derby. Can Catching Freedom become the first Louisiana Derby winner since Grindstone to take home the Run for the Roses?
Catching Freedom, part of this remaining duo for trainer Brad Cox with that scratch of Encino. And Catching Freedom, Louisiana Derby winner, third before that in the Risen Star on that wet track behind Sierra Leone. Will he make his presence felt late in this race?
I think so, and I think that this is a horse that might set up to get a little bit more of a tactical trip than either Fierceness or Sierra Leone. He can sit that sort of mid-pack closing style where he doesn't need to be on the lead, but he's not going to be so far back in comparison to a horse like Sierra Leone. And like Tarifa for Brad Cox in the Kentucky Oaks, he's moving forward at the right time. He's progressively improving, and that is something I really like to see coming into the Kentucky Derby.
He's got one of the absolute best riders in the game on board in Flavian Pratt. He's 8-1 morning line from post 4. Meanwhile, just a touch, very lightly raced coming into this Kentucky Derby. He'll be making just his 4th career start. He's run big every single time that we've seen him. Won his debut and then 2 runner-up finishes in Derby preps along the way.
And I think with him, he's really had no business sticking around with some of the pace scenarios of his last 2 races, and he has still been right there. And maybe he can relax a little bit, save enough for that 1.25-mile journey. Another one of those horses that has that look of peaking at the right time. And he's faced some of the better horses in terms of Sierra Leone, in terms of who he faced in the Gotham at that time. You know he has some ability.
Tall task, though, coming into this spot. We've seen it done, obviously, with an incredible runner, but to make just your 4th career start in the Derby, it's quite a tall order.
Yes, absolutely. It can be done, but it is a situation that it takes a pretty spectacular horse to get the job done.
It was a wet track, but it was a sensational effort, and it made people start thinking Mystic Dan could be a major player in the Kentucky Derby, but then he didn't back it up in the Arkansas Derby on a fast track.
He didn't, and I feel as though maybe you think that there might be some weather on Kentucky Derby Day, and he's a horse you want to throw in if that's the case. But for me, I felt it was more a situation where he took advantage of the best part of the racetrack when winning that Southwest, staying towards the inside. Brian Hernandez Jr. very aware of where he should be on the racetrack in order to get his horses to run their best possible races, and he just didn't back it up against a fair surface last time out.
We talked earlier, looking at what kind of running styles win the Kentucky Derby historically. It looks like it's pretty fair, at least going all the way back to 2000. But pace-wise in this Derby, there's a few that want to be up front, including your favorite. So does Track Phantom for Steve Asmussen. This horse is very quick. His best weapon is his speed, and he's going to be adding blinkers on Derby Day.
And you have to imagine that he's going to be forward yet again. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? You have a horse that has had that forward position and been around at the end in many of his starts. And while he faded a little bit in that Louisiana Derby, he's been a consistent type so far coming into this race. And while Steve Asmussen did say he doesn't necessarily foresee him on the lead, I don't really foresee him too far off of it. Do you?
I expect to see him forward in front. With blinkers on, I think they're saying, we got to go. That's his best running style. I don't see how they try and change things now with a horse who's always been in front. Here's some close calls.
This poor guy.
For Steve Asmussen. Wow. Looked like Epicenter finally was his moment. What happened?
Rich strike up
81-1. Wow. It's been so close, yet so far away. Will Saturday be a different story for Steve Asmussen and get that first ever Kentucky Derby? Very few races missing on that Hall of Fame resume for him.
I mean, doesn't that just show that we really can't have it all? A horseman that's been so successful is the winningest trainer in North America, yet this is a race that still continues to elude him. Maybe things will be different this year.
What about a horse that's sort of under the radar in here? And I know figures-wise, it would appear he needs to take a big move forward in here. But Stronghold coming into that Santa Anita Derby, he was working heads up with older, more experienced graded stakes winners. And I know Connections were expecting a huge performance in the Santa Anita Derby, and they got it.
They did. He was able to get the win for just a neck over Imagination. He had a little bit of traffic trouble in that race. He's run well over his last couple of starts, and you have to think that in California, he's faced some of the best 3-year-old males that do have an opportunity in those Triple Crown races later on. So I think that his chances are warranted, but he has to take a little bit of a step forward. And now, with the scratch, he's going to be in an 0 for post position.
Phil D'Amato been so dominant out on the West Coast. We'll see if he can get a Derby winner. Look at rookie Derby winning trainers to do it with their first ever starter. Of course, Eric Reed shocked everybody. Art Sherman with a great story of California Chrome. Chip Woolley and Mind That Bird, who got that brilliant ride from Calvin Burrell. It can be done. It can be done, and don't show that to Steve Asmussen, right? No, do not. That's got to be a painful memory. Let's go downstairs to Maggie, a man who does have a Kentucky Derby, although it came via DQ.
Yeah, that's Bill Mott, the Hall of Famer, Greg, as I'm sure he, much like Brad Cox, would like to win one outright. And it's a nice segue talking about Stronghold prior to that, because Stronghold actually beat Resilience, Bill Mott's Derby starter, in that maiden win for Stronghold. So I think that's a feather in the aforementioned horse's cap. But coming in off the back of the Wood Memorial win, Resilience really put it all together with the addition of those blinkers and under the tutelage of Bill Mott, who has just been able to get this horse to take a step forward with each subsequent start. You know, when he was 4th in the quote-unquote key race of the Risen Star, he kind of got to his company and then got to looking at him. So the blinkers assuaged that propensity to do so last time out in the Wood Memorial. His works have been really just kind of maintenance works, nothing to really wow you, but nothing at all to take you away from him. He's just been kind of trucking along, and that's his running style too, and it could be the right running style for this year's Derby with several horses, as you guys were mentioning, that could be pace setters. This guy looks as though he can just sit right off of them, and a horse that has that high cruising speed, I think that can just consistently grind out those 12 and change, eighth of a mile. So I think Resilience is well within the conversation of this 150th Derby. Guys?
How are you John Velasquez and say, I don't want to stay on this horse?
Well, when you have something next door.
Obviously, yes. So Bill Mott went to his main man, Junior Alvarado, who we expected to get them out with that situation arising. What do you think? Is he good enough if he takes a little bit of a forward move to be in the mix?
I mean, he's a horse that's worth having a conversation about in terms of where he is at the right time. He is a horse that is taking those steps forward as you want to see heading into this year's Kentucky Derby rather than regressing. But he is also one that does need to get faster coming in, and he at least will be a price if you like him.
Can play it all by getting signed up. Started with Naira Bets. Bet the Kentucky Derby. Get a $25 free bet in that race as well, just for signing up, along with that $200 deposit match sign-up bonus. When you punch in this code right there for new members, Derby 25 and sign up. Bet any track, anywhere, anytime at NairaBets.com. So underway in the pick six with Rodney the favorite starting things off. We move into the first late pick five of the meet here at Belmont at the Big A. 1-turn mile. Claiming race, all for sale for $16,000 near and horses who only have a maiden win on the resume, where we thought Gun Maestro would control this race on the front end, and the 7-horse is the 4-5 favorite for Linda Rice.
He just makes a lot of sense in this spot. If he doesn't show up, it's kind of a scramble after that, because he is one that ran well to finish 3rd last time, has taken some steps forward number-wise for the new barn based on the race that he ran 3 starts ago when he was claimed off of James Ferraro. So I think that him stretching out in distance and also getting the right kind of trip, being that lone speed type of horse, at least how it looks on paper and here, there's a lot to like about a horse that he's a short price, but he's a very likely winner of this race.
Yeah, and he did take a little bit of pressure by Arabato in that race. I think he gets a much clearer lead this afternoon. We'll see if Kendra Carmouche can open up on this group here. 4 to 5. Gun Maestro as we get set for the start of this late pick 5 here coming up. And the 5 and the 8 coming out, take out a couple of the more effective horses that were going to be coming from off the pace to try and run them down.
Right, exactly. And I think when you look at this race now with the scratches that we have and some of the other horses that you might want to say have an opportunity to win, when you go to a horse like the number 6, Been Good to Know Ya, he just has the maiden victory. When you go to the number 3, Sounds Like Something I'd Do, same thing, just has the maiden victory. So you want one of those horses that's sort of been there, done that, been at this level for a longer period of time and has been able to show up and at least be involved in some of those races, even though none of them have won more than the one time. You want the horses that have run well against winners in the past, or at least I do.
Here's a look at I Love Kara, 9 to 2, trained by Oscar Barrera. Has not had a lot of success even really being in the mix. A win and only one other finish in the money in 9 starts.
A horse that's a little tough to get to on paper and just kind of needs to get a bit faster. But at least you know with this one that he has had plenty of experience going the mile distance.
Is dropping down a bit too and was effective. Was in the mix, only missed by a head against a tougher condition. That 25,000 non-winners of 2 in the first time tackling winners. As we see riders up, get to the post parade here in a moment. 4 to 5 favorite, Gun Maestro. And another pickup mount for Kenner Carmouche, teaming up with Linda Rice here. And the son of Gun Runner coming up will try and control on the front end. And, even taking away that last race. I mean, this horse going, back to the end of last year, had 4 races in a row to end last year that were just so much faster than what anyone else in this field has done.
Right. On paper, his past several races kind of just overlay this field. And you could also say that he had some trouble in one of those starts as well, not breaking well, rushing up. I mean, he's had some excuses too.
Back to I Love Kara as we kick off the post parade, 9 to 2 from the inside.
And that start 3 back when this one almost got the victory at a big price, kind of with the race flow in there.
Poppy on Ice at 9 to 1, Romero Mirage.
Seems like more of that plodding type, a horse that gets that comfortable rhythm, just maybe not quite fast enough.
Sounds like something I didn't do. Rob Falcone Jr. took the opener.
A horse that has that one maiden victory last time out.
Scotto at 18 to 1.
Very tough to make on paper, 1 for 33.
Something I do, by the way. Sorry. Sounds like something I do. Been Good to Know You went by at 7 to 2. Here's the 4 to 5 favorite, Gun Maestro.
The horse that you and I just think will be in control early on in this race and might have a little bit of a numbers and class edge on the rest of this field.
Yeah, being bet like it right now. 1 to 2 favorite on the horse we expect to be controlling up front. Gun Maestro as we get set for this late pick 5 on the first day of the meet here, Belmont at the Big A. And here's a look ahead to opening week end at the meet. Sheepshead Bay, Westchester on Friday. Fort Marcy, Ruffian, and Elusive Quality all part of that Saturday card, including your Alabama winner, Randomize, coming back in the Ruffian for Chad Brown-Klarovich Stables, and Manny Franco will have the mount on filly mixer, 4-year-old return and only missed by a half length to the champ Idiomatic, the Breeders' Cup Distaff.
And really only has the one bad race where she just didn't show up in the Acorn, but every start other than that, she has run races that make her very tough and competitive. And this second place finish to Idiomatic was really sensational. I know Santa Anita is a track that is very kind to speed, is very kind to forwardly placed horses, but with the fractions that they ran and running against older horses for the first time, definitely did not disgrace herself running on a very narrow second to a horse that will also be coming back this weekend as well in Idiomatic.
Yeah, that is a loaded field that she is coming back in, but good to see the champ returning for Brad Cox. So Randomize returning, she's 3 to 5, morning line. She's got a stablemate she's going to be facing in this race as well. Sheeta Beauty, who at least has the recency of a return race already under her belt in that win in the Grade 3 Distaff.
She'll have to get a little bit faster, but I think that was a good step forward from her last time, a little bit against the racetrack as well.
Rarely, Maggie, is it as easy as it looks in here. 3 to 5 favorite, a horse that looks like he should control, go gate to wire. What do you think?
I don't like him. Look, horses like this can win, but when 1 to 2 favorites don't look like 1 to 2 favorites, at least physically, I'm not going to take him. He looks terrible in his coat. He's gotten washy. He's moving fine out there. He did upgrade slightly once out on the racetrack, but back in the paddock, I couldn't recommend him at all. At all. This is a horse that has been physically steady on the decline since last fall. This probably is the right field, though. I'm totally heeding that fact. So we do have a rider off of number 6 here. Been good to know ya. I think it was maybe just parting ways briefly. Luckily, Isaac Castillo held on to him, but. Yeah, I'll look elsewhere, and I'm actually going to go with Rob Falcone and Manny Franco already having a winner on the card, hoping to team up with this one who just broke his maiden last time. And I know he's a little light on figures, I get it, but I like the fact that we're finally being able to pair races back to back with this guy. He looks fantastic. I don't mind the extra furlong that he gets here, going from the 7 to the mile today. Looks as though he should be able to handle it. We'll see what he does as number 6. Been good to know ya. I didn't see what happened with him and Isaac Castillo, but they're reunited again. He was very calm throughout the preliminaries, I guess, until he hit the backside. But another horse that I thought was a little bit handier last time, albeit going the 7. Now going the mile, I think he sits even closer again. So he looks great after just graduating, breaking his maiden last time out. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm willing to look elsewhere on the 1 to 2 shot here at Gun Maestro, but certainly brings the right credentials on paper. I just wish he matched that physically, Greg.
1 to 2. Maggie going to go elsewhere, but he's going to be controlling up front.
You have to imagine. I mean, always good to hear that insight about whether or not horses look the part on the racetrack, especially at extremely short prices like this, where you do kind of have these less competitive types that you don't always know what they're going to bring to each race, and there might be a little bit more inconsistency with some of these levels of competition that we are seeing, like this spot. So I don't blame her for trying to find a price or go elsewhere. I could not on paper, but if she sees something that points her in a different direction, I certainly don't fault her for that. Been good to know you, who she talked about a little bit. I mean, this is a horse that seemed to be one that was thought of a little bit more so when he started his career, running against some tough horses versus state breds in the Maiden Special Weight Company, then off that lengthy layoff for almost over a year, actually, and then just finding the right kind of spots for him. I guess that's the alternative that I would want in here, but on paper, I couldn't look past Gun Maestro.
3 to 5, public can't either. So Kendra Carmouche, Linda Rice, who owns this one as well, trying to get just the 2nd win of his career. 1 for 19 coming in. You don't often like to say, let's get 3 to 5 on a horse who's 1 for 19, but he's just going to have such a dominant pace edge early on in here. And I just don't see, like, I feel like there was a horse on his hip last time out. I don't think anyone's going to be close to him early.
And sometimes when it seems that simple on paper, we do see some aggression from some of the other riders who have also assessed the race in a similar manner and think that they do need to press this horse early if they want to give their horse the best opportunity to be successful, to be able to defeat him, especially at that short price that we are seeing. So anything can happen out on the racetrack, but at least from pace figures and where we've seen him early on in his races in the recent past, you have to imagine that Kendra Carmouche is going from that outside post.
So 3 to 5 favorite, the 7, Gun Maestro in here, and then we're going to be on the turf coming up in the next race, the 5th race, mile 3/16 on the grass. But first things first, what do you do in this first leg of the late pick 5? For many, the way the 7 is being bet, it is a single. With Gun Maestro, Maggie going elsewhere. And we'll see if we get a little upset here. It's been a very formful day to this point through the first 3 races of the meet.
Some exciting finishes, some close ones, but yes, some shorter prices able to get the job done. Very formful to start here. And I think maybe when you're looking for prices, you'll find them a little bit later on in today's card.
Here we go. Late pick 5 begins here in the 4th. Belmont at the Big A. Let's go upstairs. Chris Griffin, the call.
Scotto moves forward. Been good to know ya. And Gun Maestro. 1-2 favorite. And in. All set. And they're off. Scotto breaks well with speed, but now drops back. It's going to be towards the far outside. Gun Maestro is trying to get out. A little tough to handle in the early stages, but Gun Maestro is quickest. Been good to know ya is right there in the early pace and at the rail. That sounds like something I do. And now Been good to know ya puts a nose in front. Still a little tough to handle there is Gun Maestro out in the center of the racetrack here, is trying to settle, is now coming down just a touch, is still ahead in front and comes right back to Been good to know ya at the rail. Here sounds like something I do. 24.53 for the opening quarter mile, now 3 across the racetrack. Poppy on Ice is 5 lengths off the battling trio, is now 2 lengths in front. That's going to be I Love Kara with Poppy on Ice, and the trailer is Scotto. They sort themselves out up the backstretch. Still 3 across the racetrack. Sounds like something I do. Is battling on towards the inside. Still holds that rail position. Been good to know ya. In between horses. 3 wide. Here comes the run from Gun Maestro. Has not been unleashed. Is trying to get out still as they're well into the far turn. I Love Kara is under a drive. Poppy on Ice. The trailer is Scotto. 47-4 for the half-mile time, and now Gun Maestro starts to warm up to the task, and here comes Gun Maestro approaching the top of the stretch, wants to go, and now Gun Maestro is being allowed to run now, is up by a length and a half. Down towards the inside, sounds like something I do, is trying to press on. Been good to know ya is right there as well, second and third. From the back, Poppy on Ice is starting to commence a rally with I Love Kara. It's Gun Maestro, who is 2.5 lengths in front inside the final 16th. Gun Maestro getting away. Gun Maestro wins it at 1-2. Sounds like something I do. We'll hang on for second. Poppy on Ice and I Love Kara in 1:37 at 3.
Little hard to handle there. Gun Maestro, Kendrick Carmouche, nice job. Horse 3 wide early on, does not matter. He's too good for this field.
And when you see a situation on paper where it seems like a horse is going to have that comfortable, easy lead, I guess the rest of the riders took a look at that and said, no, that's not how this is going to pan out. But ultimately, as you said, it did not matter. He ended up being a better horse than what he was facing in this spot. Tough to handle, pace pressure or not. He was just a little bit too good for these.
1-2 in the end. Gun Maestro as the heavy favorite. Kicks off this late pick 5. Sounds like something I do. Poppy on Ice. I Love Kara round out the top 4. Well, that had to be an eventful ride there for Kendrick, but you know, he was in a spot where it seemed like he felt pretty comfortable with this horse and was in no hurry to say, I got to take command early in this race.
It seemed like he was confident about what his horse was going to be able to do in this race relative to his competition. So he didn't panic when there were a couple of antics earlier on in the race, a horse that was trying to get out a little bit, that didn't necessarily want to have that forward momentum as well timed as it should have been, but no panic, able to get the job done in here, and 1-2 prevails.
So Kendrick Carmouche on the odds-on favorite, owned, trained by Linda Rice, now 2 for 20. For Gun Maestro at 1-2. Who handles this field as the big favorite. We move on to the pick 4 next. Stay with us. Back on America's Day at the races on our Fox Sports 2 coverage, brought to you in part by legendary Claiborne Farm. 100 years of doing the usual, unusually, well, couldn't ask for a better day to kick off this Belmont at the Big A meet here in South Ozone Park, New York, and Gun Maestro. A little difficult to handle under Kendrick Carmouche, but easy winner here at 1-2.
Not quite the easy lead that we imagined for him on paper. A horse that was trying to get out in the early stages of this race and did have a little bit of company on the front end towards the inside, but ultimately just proving that he might be a slight step above the company he was facing.
So Linda Rice with a victory here and now make it 2 for 20. All the gun runners, not superstars. Here's a gun runner at the lower level, getting it done at a short price. We expect so much of that, sire. $3 for the win. Sounds like something I'd do. In second and Poppy Ice, big price underneath in third to help that trifecta payout. Late pick 4 coming up next, but we're going to hand it over to the next crew.
Our time together is done for today. We've spent a lot of it, and it's all been great.
Don't forget, rest of the card still coming up here on opening day at the meet, and then we're going to have our Derby preview show at 5 Eastern start time. Favorite for the big race on Saturday in the Run for the Roses, Fierceness Post 17. Todd Pletcher trying to get a third Kentucky Derby win. Next crew, Keisha, Mig. We'll talk more about the favorite when we come back.
Into second, Nashville dropping out of it, and then Collusion Illusion. What a spectacular return for Charlatan, who will romp in the run-happy Malibu Stakes by 4.5 emphatic lengths. Charlatan, ultra impressive.
It's a new day for a new king.
It's America's original sport, and no one covers it better than americasbestracing.net. From the sport to the lifestyle, the best races, horses, and destination venues, cocktails, gambling, fashion, and more. americasbestracing.net is a sport for you.
Cross-country Pick 5 combines the best racing from New York with top races from around the country in one bet. Find it in your track menu and play every race day. Races are posted weekly at NYRA.com/crosscountry. General admission tickets are on sale now for the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival at Saratoga, June 6th through 9th. Admission is just $10 on Thursday as well as on Sunday for this historic event. Visit BelmontStakes.com/tickets today. Word was out when Fierceness made his debut at Saratoga in August, dominating his rivals by 11 1/4 lengths. After disappointing in the Champagne, Fierceness returned with one of the best performances of Breeders' Cup weekend, pulling away in the Juvenile and sealing champion 2-year-old honors. After a rough break in the Holy Bull contributed to his defeat in his 3-year-old return, the son of City Light ran them off their feet in the Florida Derby, a 7th in the event for trainer Todd Pletcher. Will Fierceness become the first champion juvenile to win the Kentucky Derby since American Pharoah in 2015?
When he's good, he is really good. Fierceness, what can he do in this year's Kentucky Derby? Acacia come alongside champion jockey Richard Migliori. Happy to step in here for the rest of the show. And Richie, that really is the big question. Fierceness, I think that most people can agree, is arguably the most talented horse in the field. It's just the question is he going to be able to overcome adversity, and is he going to show it on the biggest stage?
Yeah, I mean, will the real Fierceness please stand up is basically what it comes down to. I'm not
100% convinced, and maybe this is a bold statement for a 20-horse field, that he's going to encounter adversity to overcome. He's drawn beautifully for him outside the other potential speeds. Johnny Velasquez is so good at getting a horse's position going forward. I could see him laying second or third on the outside in the clear if they go too quick. If they don't go quick enough, he'll make the running and be very tough to beat. I just, unless he was to break a step slow, I don't see him encountering a tough trip.
See what he can do on Saturday. Today, we'll talk a little bit more about it in depth. Greg Wolf and Maggie Wolfendale will join the two of us for the Kentucky Derby preview show today from 5 to 5:30 on FS2. Take a little bit of a deeper dive, give some selections, hopefully some good information on Kentucky Derby 150. Fierceness will break from post 17, and Richie, it's almost really a silly conversation to talk about post positions and the history at this stage, because just a couple years ago, the gate changed, which had been a big effect with that added auxiliary gate for years as far as horses breaking from those middle to outer positions, whereas now it's one big gate for the 20 horses.
Yeah, and much more of a fair start in that respect. You know, if you had post one with the auxiliary gate, basically you were looking at running straight to the fence. If you were drawn outside, you were flush up to the crowd. Now there's a little more leeway on either side of it. And you know, we can go back to Tis the Law was post 17, and he ran a winning race. It wasn't the post that cost him. He just ran into a better rival on the day.
We'll see what Fierceness can do. In his most recent start, the Grade 1 Florida Derby, he was dazzling. There's really no better word for it. And it's interesting, too. I think if you watch how he breaks in the Florida Derby, Richie, he kind of gradually moves up to the lead, softens beautifully in John Velasquez's hands, and then there was just no catching him.
You know, Johnny did something so subtly into the far turn because his horse got into that beautiful rhythm like you talked about, just into those soft hands of Johnny Velasquez, and he let him start to march on. And basically taking everybody else out of their rhythm, which what comes easy to Fierceness doesn't come easy to most horses. He just has the ability to go fast quite easily, and he won with something left. Now, some people are saying, well, he ran so fast in the Florida Derby, will he bounce? But he won with something left. It wasn't like he was all in, and I think that's where you get more of that worry about a bounce or a horse reacting to a big effort.
Pretty easy win that day, and on top of a disappointing effort in the Holy Bull. It seems like Fierceness will either win and dazzle or be off the board.
Yeah, I mean, it's so far what he's shown in his career is you get all or nothing at all. I don't know that he can overcome adversity. He still has to prove that, and somewhere along in his career he'll have to. Maybe it's Derby Day, but I also don't believe he needs the lead. If you think about his Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he parked out second just off the pace.
One of the most intriguing horses in the field is the undefeated UAE Derby winner, Forever Young, as we've seen throughout his career, as he has maybe improved as far as maturity goes. He didn't switch leads when winning the Saudi Derby over Bookham Dano. He was much more professional in this UAE Derby. His connection saying, too, that he's a horse that doesn't handle kickback well. And you could see the rider in the UAE Derby, where at Maidan, I remember Dylan Davis running Panda Gate that day, came back and said, it's almost like beach sand, that it's a heavier type of kickback, and saying Panda Gate really did not handle it well. Forever Young got to be in the clear through the entire race, and we'll see what kind of trip he will get as far as not being able to be stuck behind a wall of horses and taking a lot of kickback.
That's a tough thing to overcome in a 20-horse field. Where do you are able to position yourself where you're not getting inundated with kickback? He's not a horse with speed. I think he's obviously very talented. He's done nothing but win. I love the photos that emerged this morning of his trainer, Yoshida Yahagi, riding him around in the paddock. I got a big kick at it in his tennis shoes, no less.
Full length of leg.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was really kind of neat there. But you know, Forever Young is going to have to show he can beat these kind of horses. Now, the UAE Derby was more of a workman-like effort, but the horse that was second, in actuality, was a 4-year-old Southern Hemisphere horse that were eligible for that race.
6 months older from the rest of the field.
Right. So their breeding season is opposite of ours. Their horses are born in the fall of the year. So he was actually, you know, roughly 6 months older. And that's significant at this stage of a horse's life.
Absolutely. That was Autobahn, who finished second to him that day. Forever Young, as you see, races in that mask, trains in it as well. And want to remind everybody, this is the perfect time to experience the excitement of the Kentucky Derby. You could do so with Naira Bets. Join now and get a $25 free bet and a $200 deposit match bonus just in time for the Derby. Use promo code Derby25 and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime. Sign up at nairabets.com for your free $25 bet and $200 deposit match. Back to today, Belmont at the Big A continuing, and we have turf race coming up here in race number 5, a mile and 3/16 in this nice allowance. Let's head down, get a paddock report from Maggie Wolfendale.
And Acacia, we'll take a look at the 2 layoff runners in this field, beginning with the outside Mondego, who just didn't do himself any favors the last time we saw him in that Twilight Derby out in California. He kind of broke a step slow, then wanted to rush up on the outside. And oftentimes in these turf races, saving ground is of the utmost importance, and he just did none of that day. He does return as a new gelding, and really, if he runs his race 2 back, he's a legitimate player, or the Belmont Derby. For coming back as a new gelding, though, he's quite nervous coming in off the bench. He's got a bit washy. He just seemed a bit nervous overall, maybe settling slightly since now they have the tack on him, and he looks very fit and strong, but just wish he was a little bit more settled having that ultimate equipment change. His number 2 is Daunt. He looks ready to go, and if history will repeat itself, he ran very well at about the same time last year at Belmont, running second. Though this a little bit further, he's proven, though, that he can handle these distance and looks ready to go for Bobby Roboto, guys.
You're watching America's Day at the Races. If you're just tuning in on Bally Sports, glad to have you with us. Acacia Clement alongside Richard Migliori. Maggie Wolfendale here with us as well. First day of the Belmont at the Big A meet, Richie, and we're getting ready for the 5th race today here in New York. And of course, with Belmont Park under construction, we'll have this spring Belmont at the Big A meet, continuing with some really good racing coming up this weekend as we celebrate Derby Week.
Yeah, tremendous cards of racing here at Aqueduct. Obviously, the eyes of the racing world will be focused on Churchill Downs, particularly Oaks and Derby Day. But we've got some great races to show, and we've had some exciting finishes to start out this Belmont at Big A meeting.
We certainly have. Race 5 at Belmont at the Big A coming up on the turf, a mile and 3/16. But before we get to that, as mentioned, a lot of good racing coming up this weekend in New York. Here is the stakes schedule. We've already had the Affirmed Success earlier today. Tomorrow, the Sheepshead Bay and Westchester. Plenty of good stakes action to look forward to for Saturday and Sunday. Do note the Bogey will come back next Saturday, so rescheduled not to take place on Sunday after drawing today. As we'll take a look at the Westchester coming up tomorrow, and this one a very fun and interesting race, grade 3, a mile on the main track. And you're wondering, Richie, who's going to take a step forward? Even money on Post Time, a horse who has a world of talent and will stretch out trying to win at the mile distance once again.
Post Time only defeated once in his career, was a very game winner here last time after being hampered through the stretch. Obviously a nice horse. Charge It coming back off the layoff, last seen in the Breeders' Cup. Messier disqualified in the Excelsior last time. This is a real deep, solid field.
Very good race. Post Time, as you mentioned, last time out, Super Chow, a horse who'd been on a tear with the sprints here in New York over the winter, and a horse that notoriously drifts. He's on the front in the blue cap, is going to drift significantly. And I know rider Sheldon Russell, who was aboard Post Time, gave you some insight after the race as to his decision to go outside that drifting horse.
Well, yeah, I was somewhat critical of Sheldon making that move because this is a horse that has continually drifted out. So, you know, as a rider, you have to know their habits. Well, Sheldon told me he was, knew of that horse's, habit of drifting, but he thought he could get to him quick enough and keep him from doing that. Obviously, it didn't work out, but he still preserved the win.
Meeting the field for race 5 today, Belmont at the Big A. Here is Agent Creed back on the turf.
Yeah, getting back to the turf. It rained off event last time. Has put together a nice turf record with 4 wins.
Here's Daunt, first off the layoff, first time of his 5-year-old season.
Yeah, we saw Bobby Robato win with Ron Beek off the bench just a few days ago.
Last seen in the Red Smith. Here's Really Good, also back to the turf.
Yeah, after being on synthetic, and this horse, mile 3/16, should suit very well. Excuse me.
The other one for Mike Maker. Here's Bays.
Yeah, Mike Maker is just so proficient with these longer running turf runners.
This is the number 5, Brumbo Waffle Toes.
Say that 3 times fast. He would be a bit of a surprise
There's
here.
got to be a story behind that name as he comes out of it. A mile try at Keeneland. And your favorite new gelding, Mondego.
Yeah, a horse that has shown a great deal of ability, was a good third in the Belmont Derby last year. Certainly a major player, and layoffs don't seem to be much of an issue for Christophe Clement trainees. I love the couple of 5 furlong works on the turf at Payson coming into this.
6-5 on Mondego to the outside. Manny Franco will be aboard. More on this 5th race on the turf, Belmont at the Big A. When we come back, stay with us on America's Day at the Races. We're back on America's Day at the Races, brought to you by Naira Bets. You can bet any track, anywhere, anytime. Get started at nairabets.com or download the app today. Race 5 coming up about 3 minutes away. We're on a firm turf course. There is the favorite, Mondego. And Richie, I was just sharing with you, this is a horse who has been gelded and has been training really well since the gelding, but has continued to get very hot even in the mornings of training. And maybe it's just something that has become the new normal for him. But of course, you expect it to kind of be the opposite when they've been gelded.
Yeah, usually they kind of settle in a little bit more, get a little more comfortable in their own skin, if you will. He looks like he's handling himself well here on race day, though. He doesn't seem to be overly worked up or warm, and it is a fairly warm day.
Manny Franco, as you saw there, winning the riding title for the Aqueduct Spring Meet, just really riding very well. And as you've pointed out time and again, too, riding the turf very well.
Been riding the turf so well, and riding the turf well you have to be patient. You have to be disciplined. Saving ground becomes such a premium. Getting horses to switch off into your hands. You know, one thing we always laud Manny about is how physically strong he is. He's just an athlete all the way through. I think he's added that soft touch with his hands, just being quieter on horses, getting horses to settle a little better. And a rider is always improving and adding these things into their repertoire. I think Manny has become more and more of a well-rounded rider.
He's on the 6-5 favorite. Hear from more in the rest of the field, though, as they warm up. Let's go back to Maggie Wolfadale.
And while I have not done so well going against favorites, I do think Mondego is just a little bit too nervous, and just I wish he warmed up a little bit better just as a short price favorite coming back off the layoff. So let's talk about the horses who do have recency, and the horse that might project to be the pace in here is number 1, Agent Creed. He'll go back to the barn of Owen Garber, who had him for a 3rd place finish while facing New York breds last fall. Last time he was on the turf, going a mile at the fairgrounds, he just always looked like the winner throughout that entire running. Even though he was able to get over a little bit from the outside post, he still didn't save that much ground. He was just better than that field. He's really strong looking and fairly keen, so that's a good indicator to me of a horse that now stretching out in distance should be forward. And you would think that Trevor McCarthy is very astute in how the turf course plays and how to give his horse the best chance will do with him and be aggressive from the start. The horse that just looked best, though, has some recency, and I think getting back to the turf is instrumental for number 3, Really Good, who I think looked by far the best in this field, named well. And watching his synthetic races, he was almost kind of moving a bit early in all of those races, and he came around the turn in his last start on his outside lead. So maybe also not fully comfortable over that Tapeta surface down at Turfway Park. I think this guy should appreciate getting back to the turf, should like the distance, and should be sitting in a nice kind of stalking trip early on here. And I'll take him at 3-1. Acacia?
Maggie, thank you. 3-1 on Really Good. And to expound on something that she touched on, Richie, bringing up, I think, a very important point. We talk often about horses' leads. When they go into a turn, they will naturally switch to their inside left lead. If he's on his outside right lead on a turn, what does that mean for a horse and being able to save some more for the end?
Well, it's very, very difficult, first of all, to hold the line of the turn well. Just naturally, it's going to pull them towards the outside, being on the right lead around a left-handed turn. So ideally, you're on your left lead, lean into the turn, make the turn the proper way, not fighting with your rider, and then to the right lead in the stretch so that you find more, right? You're changing hands with that proverbial suitcase I talk about when you're running through the airport. I thought, the big note I had about Really Good was he just middle moved in both of those last 2 races. I think getting back to the turf with a little more patient handling from Dylan Davis should be fine. I went with the 2 Daunt. He's run well off the bench before. He's run well in stakes company. And Bobby Robato had run Beak win off the layoff last time.
See how it plays out on the turf. There's your 6-5 favorite, Mondego, to the outside. Loading in for race 5, Belmont at the Big A. Chris Griffin standing by with the call.
Is in. All set. And they're off. Slight bobble there for Daunt towards the inside. The speed is with Agent Creed right out towards the front, and from the outside there's Mondego, and now Mondego will press on. Is up by a full length. Will cross over. Doesn't want to get over to the rail just yet. Just free running here on the front end. Is up by 3/4 of a length. And Manny Franco tries to slow things down. Mondego's got the lead. We'll take him into that first turn. Just off of this leader is Daunt to the outside. Is now in the 2 path. Is stalking from second. Tightly at the rail there comes Agent Creed, who broke on top. Is back to 3rd. Another length to Boyce, who's comfortable in the 4th position. Is another 2 in front of Really Good. The trailer, Brumba Waffle Toes. They're chasing Mondego, who goes to the backstretch, is still up by a half length. 23-4 for that opening quarter mile. Daunt is stalking right there towards the outside here from second. Still comfortable in 3rd is going to be Agent Creed, just alone in that 3rd position as Boyce starts to move forward. Is moving towards the outside now, is ready to challenge this 3rd place runner right now. 47-4 for the half-mile time. They're 2x2 on the front end. It's a big gap. 8 lengths back to Really Good. The trailer from Waffle Toes. Mondego's got the lead, but here's Daunt ready to challenge to the outside, and Daunt is moving up on the outside, now putting a nose in front. Mondego's coming right back to the inside, and these two head and head. Trying to join them, here comes Boyce at 7-1, is looming up on the outside, is traveling nicely so far, is going to make a 3-wide run for the front. As they reach the top of the lane, Daunt is in between horses. Down at the rail is Mondego, and they are joined by Boyce, and Boyce is now rolling down the center of the course. It's Boyce who's taking the lead. Daunt is not going anywhere. It's coming right back towards the inside, battling on here. Also trying to run on is Really Good from far out of it. The leader is Boyce, but Really Good is rolling on the grandstand side. Here comes Really Good and Dylan Davis. Really Good up in time. Really Good gets it over Boyce. Then came a photo of Mondego there with Daunt in 1 minute 54 seconds flat.
Really Good with the late close as Mike Maker runs 1-2. Not really too much of a surprise, Richie, with these distant turf races.
No, but Really Good. It was a really good pick by Maggie.
Absolutely.
Just identifying the source with the recency, and he did get that good, patient handling, making the final run.
No middle move today.
No middle move at all. Saved all that ground into Dylan Davis before angling out. You know, sometimes people see horses rally from the outside and say, wow, he came wide. No, he actually made the corner staying inside before he eased out to the clear. He sifted out nicely. It wasn't even a sharp angle. And then he just picked it up. Big, long strides to run down his uncoupled save. The 4 Boyce? Is that how I was saying that?
Boyce, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trusting Chris Griffin on that pronunciation, but Really Good with the late close there under Dylan Davis, and Boyce was the one that actually kind of made that first move. But to be fair, the pace kind of held together. Mondego and Daunt were right there digging in, but just those horses making those late moves had the best momentum closing late.
Yeah, they did. You know, Daunt really took it to Mondego around the far turn, and they kind of really accelerated the race in there, and Mondego came back to beat Daunt, so that was a very game performance. The two of them were beating about a length for everything.
They made it exciting, though. The top finisher, number 3, Really Good, closing from far off of it, 3-4-6-2 in race 5. Belmont at the Big A. Dylan Davis picking up the victory, too. This horse getting his first victory since winning the Kent at Delaware last summer. When we come back, we'll continue our Kentucky Derby talk, and this time celebrating 20 years since the Smarty Party. Smarty Jones and the Absolute Whirlwind Tour he took his connections on. More on his story after this.
The son of Run Happy, Nutella Fella, has won the Hopeful.
Eclipse champion Run Happy, priced for value and standing strong at Claiborne Farm.
Experience the adrenaline-pumping, suspense-filled action of the Sport of Kings no matter where you are with Naira Bets. It's fast, easy, and secure. Download the app today and start winning with our lucrative weekly promotions, thrilling handicapping contests, and a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program. Don't just watch horse racing, be a part of the action with Naira Bets.
Gunrunner is the sire of 9 millionaires and 8 Grade 1 winners, including Toyota Bluegrass winner Sierra Leone, along with champion Echo Zulu, 2-time Grade 1 winner Cyberknight, 3-time Grade 1 winner Tabo, track record setter Society, Claiborne Breeders Futurity winner Locked, 2-time Grade 1 winner Gunite, and Classic winner Early Voting. Gunrunner, standing at 3 chimneys.
Mid-Atlantic made 2-year-olds in training. With a catalog of top juveniles by the nation's top sires, this sale has consistently produced graded stakes winners from around the world and on all surfaces, including Kentucky Derby winner Mage, plus 2024 graded stakes winners Kinza, Linda's Gift, Mendelssohn Bay, and Olivia Darling. The Phasing-Tipton Mid-Atlantic May 2-year-olds in training sale. May 20th and 21st in Timonium, Maryland. Where will you be?
Into the winner's circle with the number 3, Really Good. Here on America's Day at the races, Dylan Davis and the son of Hard Spun closing well to get the victory in race 5.
Very well judged ride by Dylan. Just waited, made the last run. This horse, like I said, had been making middle moves on synthetic. Put it all together here on the turf, and that last run gets it done at 8:90.
Big victory there. Dylan Davis in the saddle, and he is standing by with Maggie.
Here with winning rider Dylan Davis. Aboard Really Good today. And Dylan, as you were just telling me, kind of plan B out of the gate.
Yes, Maggie. I didn't see a lot of speed in here, but I guess with other riders in here, they probably had some intention to go, but wanted to break well. I thought I could be on the leader next to it, but he just broke okay and got a little bump there, a slight bump, and he just didn't really handle it well, so I just put my hands down and just let him settle back, and he was good. He didn't show much interest there down the backside once he got to switch over to the right lead. Actually, I just never really bothered him much. I just let him get a little rhythm. Actually, they put some water on it this week, so a little bit trying to figure out that ground. And I started riding him into the turn. He's just kind of losing some action, so I try to keep the bridle up on him and not really lose that reins on him. And he, after that, he started really coming with a good run around the corner, around the bend there, and just kept him in a good spot, kept him left-handed. He wanted to lug in the touch, and those horses were laboring. He just was much the best here. He just able to get it up to the wire, and it was a good trip. Worked out well. I'm just happy that he woke up for me into the second turn.
So typical of the Mike Maker horses too. It seems as though they just get going at a mile, and that's why they see out these marathon distances.
Yes, Maggie. So you just never give up. I really thought that it was going to be a tough situation into the second turn, but just keeping him honest and keeping him on and trying to find some extra on him, and he was able to dig up some more.
How about the Sheepshead Bay tomorrow? You'll be aboard Paddock. You stole the Flower Bowl last year with her as she coming back off of the layout. She has the inside post. Is there any intention to be aggressive with her, you think, tomorrow?
Oh, definitely. She won on the lead before, and being the one hole, definitely want to get forward. If we don't get it, that's okay, but we just got to get her into her own stride, and whether she's on the lead or sitting right off of it, that's okay. They do like to have her covered up sometimes, but she won on the lead, so plans are to come out running, get the best position possible, get her stride going, and then go from there.
Well, Dylan, congratulations here with Really Good, and good luck with all the stakes action you see this weekend.
Thanks, Maggie. All right.
All right, Dylan, aboard Sheet of Booty as well. Acacia coming up this weekend, in addition to Paddock.
Plenty of stakes action coming up for Dylan as he heads back to the Jocks room. A rider, Richie, that we saw winning the winter meet here at Aqueduct and has just continued with picking up mounts for big barns and delivering when it counts, too.
I think Christophe Clement, showing the kind of confidence he's shown in Dylan and putting him on horses in Grade 1 races. The 2 Grade 1s in Dylan's career that he's won both came on Christophe Clement trainees. And trainers that see trainers of a profile, top trainers like Christophe riding a rider, gives them confidence to reach out to that rider. It's going to help build and create business. In essence, it gives a rider credibility when big stables like that give them those kind of opportunities. Then you've got to deliver, which Dylan has done. And you talk about Paddock, that ride in the Flower Bowl last year. They went so slow on the lead, came on the last 3 furlongs in 34 and change, going 1 mile and 3/8. Yep. That's flying home.
Arguably the third best horse of the race winning, but he was able to get her settled so nicely. We'll try to do the same tomorrow. We'll see how it plays out. But as far as we have today with the results, Really Good, $8.90 winner to kick things up a little bit with the late pick 5. Best of luck if you are playing and still alive as we have 3 more races to go. Race 6, turning our attention to that one next. It's a mile on the main track, $20,000 claiming race. And to the outside, the number 7 Gut Feeling is currently 9-5 on the board, won last time out, and now first off the claim for Orlando Noda. As we mentioned before the break, it was 20 years ago that Smarty Jones made his way from Pennsylvania to Oaklawn Park, continuing his quest for greatness. His record was 6 for 6, including the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby when he went to Churchill Downs and going for the Run for the Roses. And for his owner, it was the culmination of a dream.
My husband, he was very sick at that time. He was on oxygen around the clock, and nobody will ever know the struggle it was for him to get there to the Derby.
It was very emotional. There was a lot going on. At the time, Churchill was doing a lot of rebuilding, a lot of remodeling. I just didn't want to go in there. I didn't feel comfortable going in there with all that. So we went to Keeneland. And the first week we were there, I could tell he just wasn't the same horse. He wasn't training great. And I was like, man, what's going on? And we had gotten some rain one morning and we sent him to the training track instead of the main track. And he trained lights out. And I was like, okay, all right, so he just doesn't like this racetrack. So we got him out of there, we took him to Churchill, and his next breeze, he breezed unbelievable.
As we got closer and closer to the Derby, oh my gosh, the butterflies had become eagles. The excitement was unbelievable. We were going into that race with a horse that stood a chance of winning, but we also know how many ways a horse can lose a race.
A wet, late afternoon and evening here. It's like a sloppy race coming in.
You know, I started thinking, man, they might cancel this race. I mean, it was bad. The tents were blowing down.
I would have rather seen a fast track, to be honest with you.
But my biggest concern really for him, I was a little worried about the crowd and how he was going to handle it.
Marty! Oh, don't clap, don't clap. Oh, do that.
And on the way over, just to watching the way he was acting and everything, I thought, he's got his game face on. He's coming to play.
Bill, good luck to you, my friend. Once in a lifetime, bud.
I was so glad that he got to see all of that. We were in the horse racing business because of him.
Whatever happens, buddy, we had a hell of a
John. And they're off in the Kentucky Derby.
Coming out of the gate, running through the stretch the first time, there was some jostling going on. And it looked like at one time, two horses just sandwiched him and lifted him up off the ground. And Stu hung in there and maintained his position and subsequently got through the first turn in a really good spot.
Smarty Jones is a stalking second as they approach the bar turn.
I watched Stewart throw a cross at him and I saw him dig in. I remember I had my binoculars up and I'm looking behind him to see what's running. And the couple horses that were making the move, Tap It, and another horse kind of started to flatten out. And I thought, you know, man, we're gonna get this done. And then the rest was history.
And Smarty Jones is rose to the lead by journeyman jockey Stuart Elliott, and they have taken the lead away from Lionheart. And here is the first undefeated winner of the Kentucky Derby since Seattle Slow of 1977. Smarty Jones has done it.
It was such a thrill. That was the best medicine for him. The excitement, the thrill of seeing our homebred run and win.
You know, it was something I always dreamt about. For some reason, I always felt like I was going to win the Kentucky Derby. I don't know why. And it wasn't, you know, going into the race with all the people that were on board and all the media, I didn't feel any pressure. I mean, I felt really confident. And I just remember thinking at the time when he crossed the wire that, you know, oh man, the hard work, all the time we put in, yeah, it all paid off. We were very naive. You know, everybody's like, you know, were you going to go to the Preakness? Look, I don't know. I got to see how my horse comes out of the race, how he's acting.
Putting into words those feelings and those emotions, you just can't describe.
20 years since Smarty Jones in the Kentucky Derby, and you love getting to hear that description from Mrs. Chapman about it too, and it just brings you back to that day and just how special it was for those connections.
It was so special, and then to kind of be brought in behind the scenes and their thought process and all the emotions that they were going through getting there. And you know, John Service, what an incredible job he did with Smarty Jones and Stuart Elliott, who rode him. You know, not a household name by any means. Our jockey's jockey, you know, a rider that other riders respected because of just how good and professional he always was. So, you know, tremendous story. And that storm that came through Churchill Downs that day, I was in the starting gate down in post 4 or 5 with Friends Lake. And the water was running underneath the horse's legs, just like a river through the starting gate. And obviously Smarty Jones handled it extremely well. Friends Lake, not so much.
So Smarty Jones with the victory that day. 2004 Eclipse Award champion 2-year-old would win the Derby and Preakness, and unfortunately upset by Birdstone in that iconic Belmont Stakes where Mary Lou Whitney apologized for winning that victory. But what a tremendous racehorse, and what a tremendous journey he took all the fans on.
Really did. And, you know, a Pennsylvania bred, and all the people in that area in Pennsylvania, around parks and Philadelphia, he became an absolute fan favorite. It was like the little guy taking on the world, and he almost pulled it off and won the Triple Crown, but they can never take his Derby and Preakness away.
Isn't that the truth? Smarty Jones, what a great celebration of 20 years since that tremendous Derby dream did come true for the Connections. What will happen, though, in the Kentucky Oaks? Trainer Bill Mott looking for his first win with the 3-year-old fillies, and he has a tremendous chance with Just FYI, champion 2-year-old filly, making the second start of her 3-year-old season, could be peaking at the right time.
Trainer Bill Mott has won nearly every big race in the sport, but the Kentucky Oaks is one of the few that's missing on his resume. He brings in Just FYI this year, who had a perfect juvenile campaign with Grade 1 wins in the Frizette and Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies, earning champion 2-year-old filly honors along the way. After scratching from the Devona Dale in February, the daughter of Justify made her long-awaited return in the Ashland to Keeneland, finishing second behind Leslie's Rose. Could Just FYI become the first champion since Silver Bullet Day to capture the Kentucky Oaks?
Just FYI, champion 2-year-old filly after winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies and the Frizette will try to extend that impressive record on as a 3-year-old Richie. She comes off a defeat last time out in the Ashland, but that was the first start of the year for her. You'd have to imagine the Kentucky Oaks would be the perfect time for her to peak and take that big step forward.
Yeah, having that race in the Ashland under her belt, and also, you know, she did have a little bit of an illness, so that, you know, causing her to
supposed to start
scratch
a few weeks earlier at Gulfstream.
Yeah, so you know, you probably an interruption in her training for that, and now, you know, she has this race under her belt, and she looks like she's been training sensationally at Churchill Downs. I thought this was a good effort, and she was beaten by a good filly who's a contender in the Oaks as well. I think this was a perfect prep off the bench to get her where she needs to be on the main day, which is Kentucky Oaks Day.
Of course, winning the Ashland would be nice, but obviously the Kentucky Oaks, the ultimate goal, beat that day by Leslie's Rose. The top two finishers from the Ashland in posts 13 and 14, so drawn towards the outside. Not going to be the far outside, though, as Our Pretty Woman has drawn in with the scratch of Tappage and Alley.
Yes, yeah, and honestly, there's a long enough run to the turn. They're starting up at the 8th pole at Churchill Downs. They should both be able to work out trips. I think this is one of the deepest Kentucky Oaks fields we've seen in a very long time. I think this is really a quality-laden field.
And that does include the fantasy winner, Torpedo Anna, who has been described as a gorilla coming into this race. Maggie, what have you noticed from Torpedo Anna in her preparations for the Kentucky Oaks?
Well, her connections are certainly talking the talk when it comes to Torpedo Anna, and rightfully so. She's a very talented filly, but can she walk the walk when it comes to this year's Kentucky Oaks? All preparations have been exceptional. Here is her work last week, April 26th, 59 into third best of 25 at the distance on the outside. The Bay filly with regular rider Brian Hernandez in the irons, and you can see where Brian's feet are. He's really riding acey-deucey, meaning that his inside stirrup is much longer than his outside stirrup, and trying to get some leverage. And he's kind of got his hands back at his knees, restraining her early, and then he's going to open his hands up, release that tension a bit, and she's going to accelerate through the wire. Kenny McPeak and his team have been saying that she is, quote-unquote, the fastest 3-year-old filly in the country. She's going to have to bring it, though, facing a former 2-year-old, a really good 2, I should say, and just FYI, and champion, as well as Ways and Means, and of course Tarifa, who brings a pretty shiny record as the lukewarm favorite for this year's Oaks. Now, Acacia, she got very hot in Washi going to post prior to that fantasy effort, but she overcame it all. Wide post on top of that, and was really powerful and dominant. So I almost think that she needed that race to kind of shake things off and release some of that energy she had, and she could be primed and ready for a big effort on Friday.
We'll see if she lives up to all the high praise from her trainer, Maggie, the way that she's been prepping coming in. And maybe we'll be able to take a step forward off of that fantasy victory. Obviously, Kenny McPeak has had plenty of success with 3-year-old fillies. You think back a couple years ago with Swiss Skydiver winning the Preakness against the boys. And he seems pretty confident about this filly here, but he can be a confident guy.
Oh, he can be a very confident guy. He was quoted saying they better bring a bear because I've got a grizzly. Yeah. I think we always better off letting the horses do the talking. I always get nervous when connections get a little bit too high on their horses because what do they say? People have opinions. The horses have the answers.
Well, we'll see what the answer will be. It's a very fun rendition of this year's Kentucky Oaks. You can experience all the excitement of the Kentucky Derby with Naira Bet's Derby weekend coming up. Join now and get a $25 free bet and a $200 deposit bonus just in time for the Derby. Use promo code DERBY25 and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime. Sign up at NairaBets.com for your free $25 bet and $200 deposit match. Horses in the paddock for this upcoming 6th race. We're on the main track here. There's a look at the favorite to the outside, Gut Feeling. He's been in good form when around this level recently. Richie got the victory last time out, and now we'll try to make it 2 in a row, this time for the new connections.
And even though it's a slight rise in class, I think it's a very similar type field. It's a great post for 1 turn, 7 furlongs, and 1 mile races here at the Big A. Outside posts have a big advantage. I like the way he battled last time, too, getting headed and then fighting back for it.
Very game in that effort with Dylan Davis, who will look for another win today. His own little rolling double here, trying to take races 5 and 6. At favoritism now shifting over actually to the 4 Bourbon Calling, as we do see Gut Feeling claimed away from the Cantor Massey barn. This one, a current Cantor Massey runner, Bourbon Calling, who just missed last time out. Meeting the rest of the field, though, starting things off with a stretch-out runner, High Heat.
High Heat stretching out. Pat Reynolds, just a terrific horseman who's been winning races around New York as long as I can remember.
Here's Wild Banker, blinkers coming off.
He's going to have to revert to some form that we've seen in the past. His last few races leave more than a little be desired.
Coming out of some tougher starter allowance tries, here's 6%.
Yeah, we get Rudy Rodriguez, and you get Javier Castellano this time.
Next will be the horse that's currently the favorite. There he is, the 4 Bourbon Calling.
It comes off a big effort last time against Colloquy, who was very game that afternoon. He's very logical.
2-1 right now. There's a bold victory. Gustavo Rodriguez.
Yeah, he's going to have to improve. His race 3 back would make him a contender, and that was a mile here at Aqueduct.
Hold the Flight is next, trying to turn things around.
I think he just got swept off his feet last time sprinting. I like him stretching back out to a mile. I think he's a major player here.
Did see him win for 20,000 2 starts back when going a mile. That was the day that he was claimed. And there is Gut Feeling, who we talked about with the win last time out.
It's a really nice effort. He dug down deep for it, and I like horses that battle outside posts, certainly a big help. Dylan Davis continues to ride well.
5-2 on that one, as jockey Manny Franco will be aboard. The current favorite, the 4 Bourbon Calling. As we mentioned, he had a terrific spring meet, and he'll look to keep that momentum going, especially into stakes action tomorrow in the Sheepshead Bay, when he'll be aboard McCulloch for the first time for trainer Chad Brown, a horse who, as we talked about, took the worst of it in that Flower Bowl this summer, but she comes off of a win in the Orchid last time out over La Mejana, who she will rematch with tomorrow.
Yeah, and this was off of a layoff for her, and she was able to get the mile. This was a mile and 3 furlongs, right? The Orchid?
That was a mile and a half.
Mile and a half. So she's actually turning back in distance. I like the fact that she showed she can lay up a little closer, made the lead a little sooner than she normally does, and was able to continue on.
That was the first race of the year for now 5-year-old mare McCulloch, who got the win last time out after disappointing in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare Turf. She's 4-5 on the morning line, 1 of 2 for Chad Brown. Can't help but notice that he does have royalty interest in there, a horse who can be forwardly placed.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you ever been to Sheepshead Bay?
I have not.
It's only about 7.5 miles from here. It's where I grew up.
All right.
Yeah, Sheepshead Bay. Never did win the Sheepshead Bay, though.
You want to see if you can pick up a mount for tomorrow?
I'd be a little overweight.
There is Manny Franco with Bourbon Calling warming up on the track, as you mentioned, with game that day, finishing second to Colloquy. For more, let's check in trackside with Mikey.
And guys, while the 2 favorites, they look fantastic in here, Gut Feeling and Bourbon Calling, maybe a little food for thought when it comes to some bigger prices. And we'll start down on the rail with number 1, High Heat, as Pat Reynolds will send him off second off the claim. And I get what Pat's thinking. When this horse has seen the lead early, it emboldens him. It makes him very, very game. And so with a little extra ground, it makes his job a little easier getting out to the front end. But definitely not built like a horse that wants to go longer, though I respect the theory behind it, and he looks fantastic, as he has had all winter. I just don't know. There might be some physical limitations when it comes to seeing out this mile distance. As number 3, 6%, he's going to be my pick in here. I have never seen this horse look better. A horse where, going back to when he dropped to the 25, I thought did not look good at all, and he's kind of regained some of that muscle mass. He really, it was like the left side of his hind end had completely dropped away, and now it's rebuilt. He's sharp. I love him cutting back a little bit where he was on that track on March 30th, in which it was just, you know, a merry-go-round affair in which everything on the front end seemed to win that day, though Sitting on Go didn't win that race in earnest. He would come back at Keeneland and win a starter allowance with an 82 buyer. So I'm okay with 6% coming out of that race, getting a little less ground to work with. He makes such a good impression on me here for Rudy Rodriguez, as his brother, Gustavo Rodriguez, will send out number 5, Bold Victory. And I know he's a long shot in here, but he comes out of that same race. He certainly was against it out the back, going 4 to 5 wide around the racetrack. And he's another one that he just caught my eye walking in here. He's not as hot and washy. His coat looks better. His conditioning looks better. I think he's a little bit interesting off of that trainer change. especially at a big price. And then number 6, Hold the Flight, though, ran on March 30th. It was in the 6.5 sprint, in which Chuck Willis wired the field. Another horse against the racetrack coming in here. He's really tall, really lanky, so everything about him physically says longer is better. He's fine overall. I just think the distance plays better into his wheelhouse. But no doubt about it, Acacia, I'm going to try here with 6%, making the best impression in quite a long time for me.
All right, Maggie, thank you. 6%, trying to turn things around. Last win came January of 2023, but he's taking some attention too, Richie, as we'll take a look at Hold the Flight first. This is a horse who did get the win 2 starts back against similar conditions. We'll try to run back to this race, but the question is, that 84 Beyer speed figure was the fastest he's run in a while.
Yeah, it was. And then, again, last time he was, I thought, swept off his feet. He just doesn't want to sprint, but maybe it makes him a little bit sharper. It looked to me like he was a horse that was running almost in place, spinning his wheels a bit when he was behind horses. And finally, when he sifted to the clear, he found his best stride. In a small field, 7 horses, he's drawn 6 of 7 going a mile. I think he's going to work out a comfortable trip. And at 6-1, I'm going to take a little bit of a stand there.
Hold the Flight got the win with Trevor McCarthy. 2 starts back. Trevor back aboard today. He knows this horse very well. 8 of 5 now on Bourbon Calling. The thing with him, though, too, Richie, I know that he was game last time out, but it's been a long time since he's seen the winner's circle.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, even though it was a game effort and he fought all the way to the wire, he was defeated, and he hasn't won in a very long time. Cantor Mossies are having a good meet, or had a good meet, I should say, the spring meet. This is a new meeting.
We're starting new here.
I got to remind myself of that, because we're in the same location.
We're still following the calendar of the meets, even though we are not actually physically moving.
Right, which is unfortunate. But
yes.
Yeah, but I think that is something that you have to look at. I thought the 7 gut feeling might be closer to favoritism with the 4, and he's drifted to 7-2, and I think there's a lot to like there as well.
Maggie going with the 3 at 6%. Richie taking a shot with Hold the Flight, going against the 2 favorites who will try to continue on with their good momentum. There is High Heat. He's stretching out, and Maggie had some reservations about him getting the distance. I wonder what he will do as far as stretching that speed, if that will help him to carry it.
Well, and you got to think from the rail, too. Alicio Ruiz has to go forward with him, and he's coming out of, a steady diet of sprint races, so I would imagine he's the one they're going to have to catch.
See how it does play out, going a mile on the main track here in the 6th race. Belmont at the Big A, still favored. Number 4, Bourbon Calling, trying to build off a 2nd place finish last time out. Chris Griffin standing by with the call.
Bourbon Calling goes in. Bold Victory. Hold the Flight. And Gut Feeling, last to load. Here's Gut Feeling. All set. And they're off. High Heat breaks very well from the inside draw. It's High Heat right out to the front, and Hold the Flight is towards the outside here. We'll stalk from 2nd. In between horses, there is 6% is moving forward with Bourbon Calling, and now they're stacked up once again as they get set to come out of the chute, and they back off the early tempo. Bold Victory has moved to the far outside, and that's going to hold out Gut Feeling about 6 wide here, 7 wide. They line up here very tightly bunched, and the rail is open for Wild Banker, so they bandy back and forth. 24 seconds flat for the opening quarter mile. High Heat wants to hold that leading position. It's High Heat who now re-engages his back up by a length and a half. Wild Banker tried to challenge, is now back to a shared 3rd. As moving up on the outside, here comes Bourbon Calling. It's 4 wide, and that 2nd grouping is progressing. Red Cap in between horses, here's 6%. They're now 2nd and 3rd as Hold the Flight is in between them. It was a brief bid there from Wild Banker, who starts to drop back, is now the trailer. Gets passed by Gut Feeling and also Bold Victory. Still about 3.5 lengths would cover them all, and they went 46-3 for the half-mile time. High Heat trying to take them all the way. Had that brief challenge there from a Wild Banker, who's now the trailer, and High Heat is still a neck in front. They reach the top of the stretch, and Bourbon Calling is well in pursuit, is ready to challenge. High Heat is all in towards the inside and not going away. Bourbon Calling starts to edge clear now. High Heat is down towards the inside. 6% is splitting rivals coming after the leader. But Bourbon Calling and Manny Franco, they're up by 3 widening lengths inside the final 16th. It's going to be Bourbon Calling. Manny Franco with another one. Bourbon Calling wins it well. Bourbon Calling wins it over 6%. It was a late run there. Bold Victory and Gut Feeling in 1 minute 36-3.
Bourbon Calling, the favorite, a winner. All that talk about Manny Franco, and he delivers on the track here, Richie.
Yeah, and if a horse ever looked like a winner every step of the way, just focus in on Bourbon Calling. From the time they left the gate, he was always in the bridle. Manny was riding him with utter confidence before finally setting him down. And a horse that hadn't won in a long time, Manny's the right kind of rider with a horse like this because he's a rider that demands. He doesn't ask. He picks a horse up and he makes them finish the job. And that's what he did today. And just a really nice trip. And again, always traveling like a winner, Acacia. You know, as a rider, when you're sitting there and horses are traveling in your hands, it gives you so much confidence. And it was obvious Manny was feeling that confidence being telegraphed to him by Bourbon Calling.
7-5 shot with the win. Bourbon Calling with the victory here. 4-3-5-7. The claim box very active in this race as well. 1, 4, 6, and 7 all claimed. So the winner off to a new barn this afternoon for the Cantormasi brothers. And of course they have Evie Jets making her return this weekend at Churchill Downs in the Churchill Distaff Turf Mile. And it'll be really fun to see her back.
Yeah, one of those horses that it's easy to root for because she's just so honest and she shows up and gives you an effort every time. Much like the Cantormasis, they're just easy to root for. They're good horse people and just good people in general.
Bourbon Calling with the win for the barn. Another victory today for Manny Franco as well. Heading back, there's Ilkay there to greet him. Give a high five and a little celebration, a little pat for Bourbon Calling as well, able to build off that second place finish last time out and get the victory today. Our Kentucky Derby talk continues after this. Trainer Chad Brown, he's gotten close, but he's looking for his first Kentucky Derby win this weekend, and he has 2 chances, including one of the favorites in Sierra Leone. More on his runners after this.
Cyberknife was a very talented horse from day one. A very gifted, fast horse, a lot of speed, able to carry it around 2 turns. Looks a tremendous amount like Gun Runner, same ability and talent, beautiful physical, outworked every horse on the board. Holds the track record in the Haskell. He won it in impressive fashion, beating a very good group of horses.
And Cyberknife has won the TVG.com Haskell over Tama. Jack Christopher finished 3rd.
The Arkansas Derby was one of his best. Showed how much talent he really does have and stamped himself as one of the best 3-year-olds in the country.
His name is Cyberknife!
Cyberknife ranks up there as one of the most talented horses I've ever had in training. Multiple Grade 1 winner, brought it every time you let him over there. Excited about him passing on his durability, his soundness, and his talent. And if he does, he could definitely be a breed-shaping stallion.
Racetrack Television Network brings you every race, from every track, on every screen, every day. With monthly packages starting as low as $5, RTN gives you great value and access to more live HD streaming and race replays than anyone. Visit RTN.tv today to sign up and watch on almost any device, including Roku and Amazon Fire. RTN has packages that start at $5 per month.
You're watching America's Day at the Races. Acacia Kamal, Richard Migliori, and Maggie Wolfendale. Glad to have you with us. As we just saw in the 6th race, the favorite get the job done, Bourbon Calling. Manny Franco picking up another one, and the Kenter Mossy Barn back in the winner's circle once again.
Yeah, they do a really good job with their horses, and this horse looked like a winner every step of the way, just cruised up on the outside. Manny sets him down in the stretch and kicks away as much the best. I was trying to get a longer shot home and hold the flight. No good there. Maggie had the 2nd place finisher, 6%, but no doubt about it, the favorite was punctual in victory.
Bourbon Calling, getting the job done here and pulling away from his competition. First win in quite a while as well, and he just found his friends. He, up till recently, been running against some much tougher competition. 4, 3, 5, 7, $4.90 winner in race number 6. As far as that late pick 5 follow along does go, I'm sure a horse that was on quite a few tickets.
Yeah, I'm sure in your multi-race wagers, you're advancing with Bourbon Calling.
See if we have some prices in the late double here. Race 7 coming up next. It's going to be a mile on the main track, New York bred allowance here. And the number 5, Battle of Lexington, currently co-favorite at 2-1 with St. Gaudens, says Battle of Lexington will make his 2nd start for the Wayne Catalano barn.
Yeah, and real nice effort at Keeneland last time, and Kendrick Carmouche picks up the mount. Jose Lascano not riding Battle of Lexington today.
It was a huge price last time out at at Keeneland. Battle of Lexington was. Well, our America's Best Racing race of the week, I bet you could guess what it is. It will be the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby coming up this weekend on Saturday. Kentucky Derby 150. Pretty amazing. 150 years, the amount of history in this race, and we'll see who can add their name to the history books. Chad Brown, he's been close to winning the Kentucky Derby, most notably with Good Magic, finishing behind Justify a few years ago. And he has a major chance in Sierra Leone, a horse that's done very little wrong in his career as far as the wins. He is, though, Richie, that deep late closing type.
Yeah, deep closing type in a big field. He's going to have to work out a trip. Tyler Gaffleone certainly knows his way around Churchill Downs very well, been the leading rider there most of the meetings over the last several years, and he has a little bit of a propensity to want to lug in. You see Tyler having to correct him a little bit. I think it has a little bit to do with that paddling action of his, no denying his talent, and he should get pace to finish. I prefer others, but if he can work out a trip, he's certainly a horse that's going to be finishing.
He's a horse that broke his maiden first time out, maybe started a bit late against the track in the Remsen. I got a chance to see him training throughout the winter at Payson, and he kind of flourished coming into his 3-year-old year. And the big question for me, Richie, is the gate troubles. We saw how long it took him to load last time out before the Bluegrass.
Yeah, particularly with the atmosphere like it is on the Derby, Derby day with all those hundreds of, over 100,000 people. How is he going to react to all that, even if he's schooled well in the morning?
See how he handles it. And Maggie, Sierra Leone has been training in company with his stablemate, Tampa Bay Derby winner, Domestic Product, to give Chad a nice 1-2 punch.
Yeah, and kind of touching on the gate fiasco for the Bluegrass. If anything, it's not as much a detriment to him, because in reading the quotes from the starters, from Chad Brown, it's not when he gets in there, it's just before he gets in there. And if anything, that's a detriment to a horse like Dornoch or the 11 horse, who is, hold on, I haven't memorized them yet, Forever Young. So it's more about the horses that have to stand a little bit longer. Now, he's going to go in there third, theoretically speaking. So we'll see. And he always breaks a bit slow. That's just kind of who he is. But I like him. He's going to be my pick. I prefer him over Fierceness because he's been consistent. But I give a little nod to his uncoupled stablemate in Domestic Product. Now, I found this fascinating. I hadn't necessarily realized that Chad works Sierra Leone like this. He is the lead horse. He is the horse that is on the front end. So therefore, not letting him be too complacent in his preparations. Domestic Product, though, he is well in hand coming down the lane here. And Sierra Leone matching strides with him too. So I think both of these horses working incredibly well in their final prep going into this year's Kentucky Derby. They would complete the 5 furlongs in a minute and 1. Very typical Chad Brown type of work here. But despite domestic product looking quite a bit slower on paper, and I think it's just been a product of the races that he's been in with slow paces, he's impressed me as a long shot Acacia, so I would not dismiss him, and certainly one I would kind of want to use underneath in this year's Kentucky Derby.
He has been one, Maggie, that has shown he can overcome some adversity. Looking back at that Tampa Bay Derby with the slow pace, I mean, you could even see the first couple of strides, he got a little bit keen because the pace was so slow, and he's able to kind of accelerate almost like a turf horse would to win that race. While it wasn't necessarily the fastest on paper, for the eye test, I thought he was impressive that day.
You know, we can go back to when domestic product broke his maiden at Aqueduct last year, going a mile and a furlong. And for a 2-year-old to stay into the bit as long as he did speaks volumes to a horse's stamina. And I don't think he'll have any issue with the mile and a quarter. I was very impressed with that. And agreeing with you with the Tampa Bay Derby, a glacial pace. And he was still able to overcome that and get up. I think he's very interesting. He also looks like he's gotten a little bigger and stronger over the last few months. And that's something you want to see going to the Derby. What you see in March or February of a 3-year-old's year, not necessarily what you're going to see from them by May, the first Saturday in May of their 3-year-old year. They do a lot of changing and developing in that period of time.
So much that they can develop into at this time of year, and also for the second half of the year as well, what we might see in the Travers and other races throughout the second half of their 3-year-old season. But now all eyes on the Kentucky Derby. You can experience all of the excitement with the Derby with Naira Bets. Join now and get a $25 free bet and a $200 deposit bonus just in time for the Derby. Use promo code DERBY25 and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime. Sign up at NairaBets.com for your free $25 bet and $200 deposit match. We'll see who can get the job done and maybe give Chad Brown his first victory in the Kentucky Derby. We'll take a quick time out. When we come back, more on what's coming up in this 7th race. The New York Breds in the spotlight, Belmont at the Big A. We'll talk a little bit more about it after this. There's Chad Brown's runners, St. Gaudens, more after this.
Monomoy Girl now takes the lead with a quarter of a mile to the finish. It's Monomoy Girl in front. Vexatious up on the outside, moves to second. Mother is now back running in third. And P.A. Di Bianchi. There's a furlong to the finish. Monomoy Girl asks for just a bit more by jockey Florent Giroux. And Monomoy Girl has things in control as they come down for the finish. Monomoy Girl wins the Ruffian by a little more than 2.
Monomoy Girl in the Ruffian in 2020. What a start she was on the racetrack, and a great rendition of that race.
Just a gem of consistency. She showed up every single time, and she was a filly that would fight you for it. Really, I was a big fan. She looked like a lot of fun to ride because it always seems like she runs into the bridle, lets you know exactly how much you had underneath you.
So accomplished on the racetrack as well, so incredibly consistent. Look how proud she is of herself coming back to the winner's circle with those ears up.
Yeah, she had that strut going on to an empty Belmont Grandstand during the pandemic. But
those scenes are just absolutely wild to look back on, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And she knew how to pose for a picture, too, didn't she? She really kind of picked her head up, ears went up, took that shot. She
had a lot of experience posing for a win picture.
Absolutely. Yeah. She knew the path to the winner's circle quite well.
This year's field for the Grade 2 Ruffian, named for one of the all-time greats to ever look through a bridle. And no surprise, randomized, a very short price. This filly is one who I know Maggie and I had questions about her getting the distance, and she said, what questions? She was able to strut that speed, going the 1.25 miles of the Alabama. She won the Beldame, and she ran a huge race, Richie, in the Breeders' Cup Distaff behind Idiomatic.
Oh, she did. I mean, Idiomatic, your champion from last year, the string she put together. But how game was she? Just kept fighting for it. She never let go. And again, I admire horses like people that are honest, hardworking, show up and give you that effort time after time. This was a big effort.
Very big effort, and she was a finalist, arguably a huge contender for champion 3-year-old filly with what she did and how well she ran against older fillies in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. She'll be a very short price in the Ruffian, cutting back to the mile as well, but she won her maiden at a mile. She won the Wilton in Saratoga at a mile. So that speed, very, very dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think a mile is, could be her perfect distance, actually.
She'll be a short price randomized will. We look forward to seeing her back on Saturday here at Belmont at the Big A. The Distaff Stakes, meanwhile, we'll take a look back at what Sheeta Beauty did this day on the Wood Memorial undercard.
Oh, yeah, really, really nice effort here. This was Dylan Davis aboard right this day, and just
excellent ride that day.
Absolutely, saved that ground in the stretch, angled out to the clear, and she just came with this relentless run, really just picking them up, putting them down. Gets there. This was a beautiful effort from her.
Able to run down 8 Broke that day, who we will see running in the Ruffian as well. They'll get a chance to rematch Fingal's Cave, too. Also now second off the layoff, but a big effort and a very smart ride from Dylan, who really put her in the right spot. A horse that sometimes can kind of drop far back, and also the inside was really a great place to be early on, especially on that day. And Dylan, who had just been riding lights out at that time, really kind of capping it with this big performance.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, and you see her come back, you see all this dirt that she has on her neck and chest, but not so much dirt in her face. And with horses, and a lot of horses don't handle kickback as well as people think, if you can ride them up close enough to the horse in front of your heels, that dirt hits them in the chest and in the neck, not in the face where it really impacts them more. And I think that was a prime example. Dylan putting her in that spot close enough up to heels that the kickback wasn't inundating her face as much.
Great point on that as well. We'll see what Sheeta Beauty and Dylan Davis can do on Saturday in the Ruffian. There is Chad Brown's runner with Manny Franco, though. St. Gaudens in the paddock for race number 7. New York breds in the spotlight. Let's head down and get a paddock report from Maggie.
Yeah, we'll check in with St. Gaudens, who I feel like is a horse that is constantly a work in progress, in that he just didn't work out first time out, going short. And then second time out, he was able to get into his stride, find that easy lead, and dominate. Whereas last time, there were several horses kind of vying and jockeying for the lead, and that he kind of got shuffled back a little bit early. He didn't know what to do with himself. And then Manny Franco said, no, go on with it. So then he contested the lead and ultimately came up a bit short. And contesting that lead with That's Money, who did assert himself early on and was able to virtually wire the field that day. Look, he is a physical specimen. He is incredibly appealing to the eye. It's just, what are you going to get when he steps out on the racetrack? Is he going to be able to be a bit more professional with each subsequent start? He was a little bit warm when he first walked in here. I'm not going to hold that against him. He's since cooled off a little bit. But again, physically, looks great. See, mentally, what he brings to the table today. Number 5, Battle of Lexington. Have not seen him since that 3-year-old campaign, early on in that 3-year-old campaign. And one that made a good impression when I had seen him. Hasn't changed much physically. Is quite a smaller individual, kind of going along with that kind of war front line, and that they're smaller but really well balanced. So, okay, that's fine, as he is by the lesser known Stallion War Correspondent. Very aggressive here in the paddock, and very sharp, second off the bench, and fit, so ready to go. And in that effort, first time for Wayne Catalano was on that track at Keeneland that just seemed to be carrying inside runners. He got shuffled back at the start, was wired by Suncroft that day, but he spent the majority of that race, in fact, all of it, on the inside. So I feel like that third place was more or less by default, though it did yield a fast time. We'll see if he can build on that occasion and be effective getting back against New York breds here for Wayne Catalano.
48-1 that day, finishing third. Maggie, thank you. Second off the layoff, and yes, back against his New York bred friends. Battle of Lexington as Kendrick Carmouche gets a leg up.
Yeah, and listen, now it's a big effort against Open Company. I think Maggie makes some really good points about his trip, and Brian Hernandez rides consistently those terrific races. But now he's getting back in with New York breds, so you understand why he's a major player. About 1,000 New York breds foaled a year as opposed to about 19,000 foals nationally. So it's just really narrowing down the gene pool for him.
And you're hosting the New York Bred Awards once again?
Yeah, the New York Breeders' Dinner at GMP Farm right up in Saratoga. So really looking forward to that.
Meeting the field for these New York breds, boys code. First off the bench, we'll start off the post parade.
Yeah, coming off a nice effort at this distance last November. Has to contend with the layoff.
Blinkers going on Aula.
3-time winner, Aula getting a 10-pound apprentice. So you're getting a big break in weights here. Gets in with 114.
9-1 right now. Here's Jackson Heights, still in Davis aboard.
Another one with a good effort last time. I think he's a player here.
A horse that does like to come from very far off of it. There's the 4, Dr. Kraft, stretching out.
Yeah, stretching out. Maybe he puts himself a bit more in the race. He's won for 15 lifetime with 4 seconds, 6 thirds. He's got to show he wants it at crunch time.
Co-favorite, here's Battle of Lexington.
Yeah, coming off a big effort at Keeneland, now gets back in with the New York breds.
Here's the one highlighted as the favorite, Chad Brown runner, St. Gaudens.
Out of that terrific mare, Artemis Agritera for the Chester and Mary Broman. Obviously, he was purchased by Peter Brand at auction. Buy into Mischief. There's a lot to like.
Half to our good old friend Chestertown. And there is Messi the Magician stretching out for the first time.
Yeah, stretching out. Effort 2-back was really, really strong in the starter allowance. Now he has to show he can do it going a mile. Outside post, don't you think he's going to be forward if not on the lead?
He showed quite a bit of speed when he broke his maiden sprinting and even has in his last couple of starts. Will be interesting to see what Eric Cancel does do from the outside post as he will stretch out. There's St. Gaudens, though, as Maggie touched on, a disappointment. First time out as the favorite. In fact, the only time he was not the favorite was when he broke his maiden. This is his race last time out, though, when he finished 4th, beaten 3 lengths.
Yeah, and he was under pressure from a long way out. I mean, even around the far turn, Manny was having to remind him he had to go to his left hand early because this horse does have that habit of wanting to lug in away from the outside horse. Almost looks like he looks at him a little bit. Listen, he's got the pedigree, but Artemis Agritera, as good a racehorse as she has, she hasn't really produced certainly or reproduce what she was.
Right. As mentioned, the best in the family, Chestertown, a horse who won a New York bred stake, though I know has been a bit of a head scratcher for connections and bettors alike throughout his career. There's the number 5, Battle of Lexington. We'll try to build off of that last race. Now, it was a good effort, but it was significantly faster than anything he ran as a 3-year-old, and will be interesting to see if he takes a step forward back against New York breds.
Well, but, also we got to be fair to him, right? He had a very shortened 3-year-old campaign. He was done in July, and horses are naturally going to get bigger, stronger, somewhat faster from 3 to 4, and he was, off such a long time. You got to think the race, it benefits him from a fitness standpoint, and maybe there's another step forward in him.
There you see what Maggie was talking about. Stayed on the rail throughout, getting a big warm-up from Kendrick Carmouche out on the track. Battle of Lexington, 2-1 right now. For more on these warm-ups, let's go back to Maggie.
Yeah, let's check in with the horse coming in and trying to stretch out. That's on the outside, Messy the Magician. A horse that when we have seen him on the front, which was only one time, was the only time he won a race. Breaking his maiden first off the claim for the Cantamasi barn. And really, he's not a horse that physically looks as though he's limited. Looks as though he can handle this mile. He's a bigger sort, and he's fairly laid back today, which I find always a good sign when kind of trying to conserve that energy, not too wound up. He's not going to be too aggressive and pulling against his rider. Look, I think that's the intention, right? Logical sense would tell you that, yes, this is what they're trying to do, because the only time he's won has been when he's on the front end. So I'm hoping Eric is aggressive with him and can dole out those fractions, because I'm on the positive end of things. I'm going to default to St. Gaudens here, because I think yet again he did learn something from that last race, and physically he just looks best in here. But I think the outside 3 are quite interesting. Acacia, I could see any of them winning.
All right, Maggie, thanks. We'll see who is able to get the job done. You're getting a generous price on Messy the Magician at 10-1, and we'll see what he can do as Cantamasi barn looks for another one. 8-5 now on the 6 St. Gaudens, though.
Yeah, listen, that big pedigree, beautiful individual, right connections. You get Chad Brown, Manny Franco. I totally understand why this horse is favored. I went with the 5 Battle of Lexington. I did like his return, and I'm just counting on that. It was that step from 3 to 4 that made him a little better. I almost picked Messy the Magician because I think he gallops to the lead here. I think he gets very, very comfortable. And I used to love to ride horses coming out of sprints, stretching to the 1-turn miles, particularly when I got that outside post. You don't have to force them. You don't touch their mouths. You boom, you break, you put your hands into their neck and allow them to use their stride. And being outside, Casey, just let them run straight down the racetrack until you clear the chute, and then start angling over, easing over. Horses get in such a good rhythm when you're able to do that with them that it feels like it carries their speed further.
A horse that would really appreciate seeing a lot of speed on the front end is the 3 Jackson Heights, one that ran actually quite well last time out. His first start off the layoff, and being such a deep closer, he's often a victim of pace, but he does come running.
Oh, absolutely. And he might get enough pace to run into here, particularly with Messy the Magician coming out of those sprints. And he should be better for the effort last time, shaking that ring rust off, if you will. Jackson Heights, certainly a player. I thought this race was a lot more competitive, as you dug into it, than just your 2 favorites, the 5 and the 6. Even a horse like Dr. Kraft on the stretch out, he usually shows up and gives you a good effort.
Dr. Kraft, who has been sprinting recently, first start going a mile in a while, but back when he was a 3-year-old, did run 3rd in the Gander last year as well. So we'll see what he can do stretching out in distance. Trevor McCarthy going to be in the saddle. New York Breds in the spotlight here, as mentioned. You'll be hosting the New York Breeders Awards, and it's always fun for those of us that follow New York racing year-round to see the New York Bred program and how it's grown and how these New York Breds are so successful on bigger stages.
Well, it's just the evolution of the New York breeding program since I first got involved in racing has changed so dramatically. It was a time when you could pick the New York Breds out of the crowd. They just were smaller. They didn't look as imposing. You can't say that anymore. They can compete on a international level, excuse me.
Bob Baffert's buying all the New York breds at the 2-year-old sales now, too.
Yeah, they're just treating them like they're good horses.
Yep.
We don't have to take advantage of the New York breeding program and run them in New York. We're racing them in open company. They're winning races all around the world, grade ones, and obviously a horse like Funnyside winning the Kentucky Derby really kind of elevated the breeding program in people's eyes. I mean, I think it's been a tremendous work in progress since the late 70s, and it's fantastic to see.
New York bred Tis the Law, who won the Belmont Travers a couple of years ago, now a stallion, has had some pretty exciting progeny into the sales ring as well, including the sales topper recently. But always love to get a chance to see those New York breds in the spotlight and what they can do on some of the bigger stages as well. There goes Jackson Heights, always a little bit tricky at the starting gate. He goes in pretty smoothly today. New York bred allowance coming up. St. Gaudens currently the favorite. Chris Griffin standing by with the call.
Battle of Lexington. St. Gaudens. St. Gaudens goes in. Messi, the Magician, last to load. And in. All set. And they're off. Breaking outward there was Boys Code. Getting the worst of it was Jackson Heights, who's the early trailer. Speed from the outside, there's Messi the Magician in the early fray, and Dr. Kraft is right there as well. Down at the rail, here's Aula, and Aula is now ready to challenge and put a nose in front as they get set to hook up with the backstretch. St. Gaudens is well settled in the 4th spot, is only 2.5 off the lead. In behind St. Gaudens comes Battle of Lexington, followed by Boys Code. After the start, Jackson Heights, 8 lengths the trailer, 23 and 4 for the opening quarter. It's Aula to the inside here and neck in front of Messi the Magician. There's still a clear 1-2 as Dr. Kraft continues to progress here at the rail for Trevor McCarthy. Is now a nose in front of St. Gaudens. Just a patient ride so far. Is approaching a half mile left to go, and St. Gaudens is up on the outside here from 4th. It's another 3. Back to Battle of Lexington, who is starting to be encouraged to move forward. Boys Code starts to launch a rally. Jackson Heights continues to trail. Here comes Messi, the Magician, comes calling for the lead. It's Messi the Magician who's in front. A host of pursuers in behind. St. Gaudens is just looming up on the outside. They're 4 across the racetrack as Dr. Kraft is trying to make that winning move right now as they reach the top of the stretch. Dr. Kraft to the inside. Messi the Magician backs out of it. St. Gaudens is the looming presence to the outside, but Dr. Kraft is kicking on. It's Dr. Kraft who got the jump at the top of the stretch and is now opening up the margin. Dr. Kraft is now 2.5 lengths in front. St. Gaudens continues to chase from far out of it. Jackson Heights, but running out of real estate. Dr. Kraft pulls off the upset. Dr. Kraft wins it. Jackson Heights up for second. St. Gaudens. Then a photo. Alla with Boys Code in 1 minute 36 and 3.
Dr. Kraft stretching out in distance, gets back to the winner's circle, able to hold off a late running Jackson Heights.
He has really been a gem of consistency lately, Dr. Kraft. You know, he shows up and gives you that effort. Now stretching to the mile, was able to be a little bit more forward, just in a little better position. Good ride by Trevor McCarthy to have him in the right spot. And he was able to slide up in between horses right in here. And that was the winning move, being able to save that ground and slide up inside of Messi the Magician as St. Gaudens had to circle up wide. Looked like he had dead aim, but Dr. Kraft kept finding, and this was a nice effort. St. Gaudens, again, wanting to lug in a little bit, just didn't finish the deal.
How important and pivotal is that moment when a horse like Dr. Kraft was able to split horses and save that precious ground versus St. Gaudens, the favorite, who had to swing wide at that point on the turn?
Yeah, I mean, you're just getting the best of it, right? You're saving that ground. No horses having to travel further distance. It also emboldens a horse. When they split horses like that and do it the right way, it's almost like their confidence level really explodes, and then they go on. This was a nice effort, and listen, tremendous job by Chris Englehart to have this horse in really good form. ground out a lot of checks over the last 4 or 5 efforts, and now gets the major check. St. Gaudens actually blew second to Jackson Heights, who basically rallied from Jackson Heights. I mean, he was as far back as a horse could be. I mean, he was 8 lengths behind the second to last horse down the backstretch.
Awkward at the start, very far back from a horse that doesn't typically show any speed anyway, and he came with that big late run, but have to settle for second. This will shake up the late pick 5 with some prices here in race 7, 4, 3, 6, 1. Your heavy favorite will have to settle for third. Trevor McCarthy all smiles as he leads Dr. Kraft into the winner's circle. Prices and more when we come back.
It's a domineering display by the ultra-talented McKenzie.
McKenzie in a dominant performance.
200 right there. 1,200,000. 550. Mitchell, 550,000.
Now 500 and 500,000. Thank you.
450. 75. 475,000.
Experience the adrenaline-pumping, suspense-filled action of the Sport of Kings no matter where you are with Naira Bets. It's fast, easy, and secure. Download the app today and start winning with our lucrative weekly promotions, thrilling handicapping contests, and a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program. Don't just watch horse racing, be a part of the action with Naira Bets.
Coaching Club American Oaks.
Forte to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Eclipse champion Blame, standing at Claiborne Farm.
There's a big, bold, beautiful world waiting to be explored by you and your friends, of course. But not just any friends, the best of friends. The kind of friends who let you do you. Because in this world, it's positive vibes only. And when you get in the zone here, you stay a while. These aren't just good times, they're the best of times. And your time is now. So come explore. Resorts World.
We're back on America's Day at the Races as this Winner's Circle lead-in is brought to you by the Fasig-Tipton Mid-Atlantic May 2-year-old in training sale after the Preakness on May 20th and 21st in Timonium, Maryland. Where will you be? Dr. Kraft is headed to the Winner's Circle. That's where he is right now. $20.40 winner. Big price there in the 7th. Let's head down to Maggie.
Here with Trevor McCarthy. I was just joking with Trevor. Dr. Kraft, he goes off at a big price today after knocking on the door, but just failing to get the job done at shorter prices. How'd you get it done today?
Yeah, look, I know going a mile he was going to be tactical, and last time he kind of got pinched right there after the start, and he got shuffled back, and he come with a late run, and today he sat in the pocket. He's one of those horses you got to just kind of not so much pedal, but check up, and just kind of keep him there. When it kind of opened, I waited a second. I didn't know if he was going to burst through there. But then once I asked him, he went. And then as soon as he got up to the lead on his own, he threw his ears up. And I just kind of stayed busy on him and just kind of threw some crosses, a little bit of a crop encouragement. But I think once he kind of got out there on his own, he got really brave. And he put up a really good performance today.
I think you're really, truly one of those thinking man's riders, Trevor. How much homework and how much preparation do you go into, and how much does your wife, Katie? I mean, does she help you with that homework? I'm joking.
Not so much, but we do. We give each other some feedback. Yeah. But last time I rode this horse, she told me, "Oh, you got Dr. Kraft beat." I said, "Well, man, tough crowd. I should have went and got a pizza somewhere at the diner or whatever, not come home to this." But anyway, so it's always good to get feedback. But doing my homework, I just try to prepare the best I can. Replays, watching other horses, my horse, and look, I've known this guy for a long time. I've been riding him, so it was great. Everything just went perfect today.
Now, one that you don't know, you'll be on in the next race. I'll let you run in a second here, but growth rate, turning back, getting back to the turf. What did you get out of her first turf race up at the spa?
Yeah, I thought she ran okay. She was tactical. She broke well. She placed herself, and she just didn't have any finish. I actually worked her in the morning, and she worked awesome. So they're kind of just hoping that, you know, she does take to the turf and sprinting. She's kind of one of those fillies that just wants to be left alone, not want to be told too much to do. So, you know, from the one hole, I think just have to kind of ride her out of there, get a good position, and kind of see what she wants to do is the main thing.
That's exactly what I thought, too. It seemed like when Jose asked her, she was like, no, I just don't want to do it. So with a little experience, hopefully she shows up for you. Trevor, good luck and congrats here.
Thanks, Maggie.
All right, always a pleasure to catch up with Trevor McCarthy. Great insights, per usual, Acacia.
Definitely one that thinks it all through, and if he doesn't think enough, his wife will tell him.
I love that. I love that. He said, should have got a pizza. Should have come for this. I will say this, Acacia. I'm getting more and more nervous. I'm
Why?
as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
Oh, no.
Because all of these jockeys are so well-spoken. They're all doing these interviews. Dylan Davis before, Maggie threw one question. He talked straight away for a minute and a half. I'm worried about my job.
They're all coming for you, Richie. They're all coming for you. As Dr. Kraft will shake up the late pick 5, follow along $20.40 winner. Trevor looking to win the late double in here, as well as we'll see how that does play out. Coming up with the final race of the day, growth rate, as Maggie touched on, with this filly getting back onto the turf, and after he wins the last race, he'll come up on the set to take over. And just kidding. But growth rate, a horse getting back onto the turf, and she's going to say sprinting this time, an intriguing move.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Listen, she started out last year on the turf going long in Saratoga and got positioned, showed some run there, and just didn't stay the distance. Maybe it's one of those Goldilocks effects, right? The right surface and the right distance instead of too long on the turf, and then she tried dirt. Now maybe everything is just right.
The Goldilocks effect. We'll see if it plays out for growth rate. Currently 9-1 on the board. We had stakes action early in the card today in the Affirmed Success in race number 3. The New York breds sprinting, and it was Rodney who was very impressive in this effort. Richie, a horse who came back off a bit of a layoff after disappointing in the Tom Fool against Graded Open Company last time out, and boy, was he back with style.
Oh, he really was. And this is a horse that likes to go fast early. He's better going a little faster than he is going slower, and he just kept finding. Really nice to see Buck Butler, his wife Loretta, their children, grandchildren, daughter-in-law, everybody out to enjoy this beautiful day, and Rodney did not disappoint.
Big performance from that New York bred Son of Run Happy, getting back to the winner's circle, homebred for Buck Butler as well. And talking about those New York breds, and you touched on it earlier in the show, but a race name for Affirmed Success, just such a talented racehorse.
Such a talented, honest racehorse, showed up every single time. Interestingly enough, he was not a New York bred Affirmed Success, but he was owned by Al Freed, a beautiful farm up in Rhinebeck, New York, Buttonwood Farm. And Al Freed, I talked about it earlier, he was an exercise rider for Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons as a young man, wanting to be a jockey. Probably did a little better going into other endeavors.
As we did see Rodney winning the Affirmed Success in New York bred, successful there in a big way. Let's talk a little bit more about the Kentucky Derby before we get to the nightcap. Belmont at the Big A, and a horse that's gotten a lot of buzz leading up to the Run for the Roses. In Honor Marie, a very special race coming up, and easy connections to root for. More on his story and what this horse has done in preparation after this. We're back on America's Day at the Races. Great shot of Rockefeller Center there. Brought to you by Naira Bets. You can bet any track, anywhere, anytime. Get started at nairabets.com or download the app today. Just a couple days away from Kentucky Derby 150. It is our America's Best Racing race of the week. One of the most important races, if not the most important in American dirt racing for the 3-year-olds. Encino is out. Epic Ride draws in. And a horse that's 20-1 on the morning line, though, Richie, and Honor Marie has turned a lot of heads in preparation for this year's Kentucky Derby. Finished second behind Catching Freedom last time out, and first Derby starter for Whit Beckman, who has only been training for a short time, and such an exciting opportunity for him.
Yeah, it was working for Chad Brown previously, and this was a nice effort from this horse, and he was closing going 1 mile and 3/16, so it looks like the 1.25 miles will do well. More importantly, this horse has already shown that he likes Churchill Downs. 3 starts there, 2 wins, including the Kentucky Jockey Club, which we're taking a look at here. And he's been training incredibly well over the Churchill Downs strip. One of the heads he turned is mine included. I think he is a player at a big price.
Son of Honor Code for Whit Beckman, as mentioned, worked for Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher, and Maggie. A big opportunity for his connections, but a horse that looks like he has the goods as well coming into this race.
And like you guys are mentioning, an affinity for the Churchill Downs strip, as he has won 2 of his 3 starts underneath the Twin Spires, including that Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club. And a horse that, like you mentioned, the works have been exceptional leading into this. Now, this was actually last Thursday, and Whit mentioning when questioned, why aren't you on the Saturday schedule? He said, well, because I do things my own way, and because he has a smaller string of horses, it enables him to individualize training regimes for his horses. And you're going to see him outside of workmate Agu, who ironically will run in the race right after the Kentucky Derby in an allowance race. And he is a decent enough and stakes place sprinter, but Honor Marie is just going to put him away impressively with his rider Ben Curtis aboard, completing that 5/8 and 59 and 1. That was the best of 11 at the distance there. And I just really like what I'm seeing from this horse, prepping and running second in that Louisiana Derby to Catching Freedom. And like you mentioned, Acacia, the opportunity it's giving his young, maybe not so familiar with the Kentucky Derby, though Whit, I'm sure, went there several times with Todd Pletcher. But for Ben Curtis, who is Irish-born, he actually galloped horses in the States before launching that career overseas. On a whim, said, you know what, I'm going to spend the winter at the fairgrounds with Ron Fauché, former trainer, as his agent, and now they're riding in the Kentucky Derby. So definitely well worth traveling across the Atlantic to get him out in the Run for the Roses.
That whim paid off for sure. It's a terrific story of Ben Curtis, who rode Honor Marie in the Louisiana Derby last time out, finishing second to Catching Freedom, and now having the opportunity to ride in the biggest dirt race in America as well.
Absolutely. That would be a fairy tale story, right, if he was to pull that off. One thing watching Honor Marie work on the Churchill Downs strip, Churchill is a track that has a tendency to cup out, meaning it breaks away from horses a little bit, and they'll bobble in their works. You don't see that at all with this horse. He almost just kind of floats over the top of the ground, and I think maybe because he's a little bit lighter framed, it's just easier on him. So maybe that's a key to his success, that why he handles that Churchill Downs surface so well.
And an affinity for the track, there's certainly nothing wrong with that when you're going into the biggest race of this horse's career. He'll be fun to follow in the Kentucky Derby coming up. We'll dive deeper into a lot more of the connections in the Kentucky Derby preview show. Greg Wolf, Richard Migliore, Maggie Wolfendale, and myself coming up later today from 5 to 5:30 on FS2. We hope that you'll join us as we'll get a chance to preview some of the big contenders in Kentucky Derby 150. Back to today at Belmont at the Big A. Still getting used to saying that. First day of the meet here. Race 8, the nightcap coming up, going 6 furlongs on the turf and maiden special weight for the fillies. And the entry currently favored. There is one part of the entry in Parade Ring. Richie, a horse who we saw cut back to sprinting last time out at Gulfstream.
Yeah, and I think that was a key move for her. She ran extremely well, finished well. And it's nice to see Anthony Dutrow back in New York, somebody who I've known since he was assistant to his dad, Dick Dutrow Sr. He was just a tremendous horseman. And Anthony, well, the apple didn't fall far from the tree, and it didn't roll.
It didn't roll. I like that. As far as the 6 Ocean Mermaid is concerned, Wesley Ward runner back in against the girls. For more on it, the rest of this field, though, let's get a paddock report from Maggie.
I'm going to check in with the horses who do have experience and catching up with Trevor prior to this race. We talked a little bit about growth rate, and I loved his response to my question because I like the fact that he's worked her and been on her. It seems like when Trevor knows his horses prior to getting on them in the starting gate, it turns into better results. And she is a filly that, at least watching her first race, did not appreciate being kind of told what to do, feeling like she needs to run into the race under her own time, because when Jose tried to set her down, her head came up, she kind of got uncomfortable, and 2, a lot of horses started crowding around her. Now she has the experience under her belt, and switching back to the turf, I'm actually intrigued to see what she does. Physically, I will admit, she doesn't necessarily strike me as a sprinter. That's my concern. But she does look tremendous here in the paddock, and I think she's interested in getting back to this surface. Number 6, Ocean Mermaid. Typical Wesley Ward move. They start their careers always with blinkers on, and as 3-year-olds, they take them off. And she was beaten by some good ones in her 2 starts as a 2-year-old. Crimson Advocate would, of course, go over and win the Queen Mary at Ascot, and Good Lord Laurie, she took on the boys in her second start. He would come back and take down the Woodhaven with his first start as a 3-year-old. And Ocean Mermaid, looking at her here in the paddock, does come back looking very, very fit, but also looking like she might need to strengthen a bit. Just not your typical kind of really robust Wesley Ward horse. Granted, she was like that as a 2-year-old. So we'll see what she does here. I do think she's prepared enough to come back going this 6 furlongs on the turf. And then a first-time turf horse is Awati for Riley Mott, who we don't see run any horses here, daughter of Collected. She is a 4-year-old against many 3-year-old fillies in here. The dam was 0 for 5, but 3 of the 4 siblings, on the turf, have won on it, including multiple stakes place runner Boreal for Graham Motion. She looks like a turf horse. She looks as though she should handle this surface very well. Bigger foot, slacker pasterns, more angular type of frame to her. So she's intriguing. She does look very fit and well-conditioned heading back into this effort. Acacia?
Maggie, thank you. And she is 12-1. Awatia, first time on the turf for Riley Mott, who's been having a very solid year as well. Meeting the rest of the field, though, starting things off with one part of the entry. Here's Parade Ring, who we talked about.
A nice effort turning back in distance, and now gets another furlong to negotiate. Probably will help.
The 1A, Izzy Sweet Girl.
I thought she ran well first time, too. 5 furlongs at Gulfstream is sharp. 3/4 probably help.
Here's the 2, Growth Rate, back on the turf.
I think a player here on the turn back, to sprinting on the turf.
Next will be the number 4, Marco T, a horse that's just been knocking on the door.
Yeah, a lot of good races, even stakes placed already. Major player here.
Never worse than 3rd in her career. There's Classic Cara cutting back in distance.
Yeah, been showing more speed on the stretch out on the turf, now cutting back in distance.
Ocean Mermaid, as Maggie touched on, definitely flattered by the competition she's faced.
Absolutely. And, Wesley Ward, those horses usually show you their best right away. Can you expect any kind of improvement?
Here's Awatia, first time on the turf.
Out of more of a turf mare that has already produced turf winners.
Number 8, big price on first-time starter, Bewildered.
Yeah, the mare really has only produced one turf winner. I'm not seeing an overwhelming amount of turf pedigree here.
Another big price and another firster, Azteca Stardust.
Certainly a pedigree by Sharp Azteca you would think would have some speed.
There is a number 10, another first-time starter, Private Property.
Yeah, and actually at 10-1, taking a little bit of money, in a big field. We've had other first-time starters like this one. How do you pronounce that?
Bellicue.
Bellicue. Okay, I'll go with that. She's 40-1, so she's taking absolutely no money at all.
That filling by Violence to the outside at 40-1. Coming up, we'll also get a chance to see the Fort Marcy on Saturday here in New York. 1 1/8 on the turf for the older horses. And as we've become accustomed to seeing Charlie Appleby coming to the States with a big chance. And actually, Ottoman Fleet, his runner in here, will try to defend his title as he won the Fort Marcy at Belmont last year. This time will be Belmont at the Big A. So a different surface that he'll be running over, but won the Fort Marcy and then went on to finish third in the Manhattan. Richard Mullen will be back aboard.
Yeah, and they've been eyeing this defense of their Fort Marcy crown ever since this effort last year. Terrific ride by Richard Mullins here, slipping through on the inside. And Charlie Appleby so good at identifying what horses will adapt well, will excel, North American style racing, usually faster paces than you get in Europe, horses that can put themselves in the game, handle the tighter turns of the racetracks here. And we haven't seen Richard Mullins since he had that accident last year in was it the Bowling Green in Saratoga?
Right. You didn't ride here in the fall
I didn't see him ride here in the fall. I'm sure he's been riding in Europe.
Yes, I didn't think of it. Yes, that was when Rebels Romance we did see get unseated in the Bowling Green. But taking a look at Charlie Appleby, New York success just very impressive. It all kind of started with Althea in 2021 and then just has continued on a tear there. I know a lot of the other horsemen in these long-distance turf races wish that he would stay home, but he's had a lot of success coming here to New York and adds a very, very intriguing layer to these races.
It must be a little bit discouraging, right? You have a horse that's doing well and you feel good about your chances and you pick up the overnight and go, this guy had a ship here again.
I know. We've seen it at Keeneland as well. As back to today, these horses warming up on the track for the nightcap on the turf. Let's go back to Maggie.
Well, unfortunately, the old entry hurting some prices. If you like them individually, and I do. I like Izzy Sweet Girl a bit more than her coupled stablemate in here. She's just impressed me from the word go in her second start of her career. Big gallop around the turn for Javier Castellano. And watching her first start, she was out the back early, and you can't do that going 5/8 of a mile at Gulfstream Park. And I think she ran on well in and amongst horses and down on the rail. So showing a bit of bravery and a turn of foot as well. So getting to the 6 furlongs for her second start, I think makes a lot of sense. Wouldn't be surprised if she's laying a bit closer to with the warm-up that I've seen from her and just her overall presence. Like I said, big, robust filly. Just, I think, another step forward as well within her future. As a first-time starter that you guys mentioned, taking some money, Private Property, daughter of Territories, who is pretty good with his turf sprinters. And the dam, while she was 0 for 3 on the turf, 2 of the 3 siblings while racing overseas have been winners on the surface. Aggressive in the warm-up, so spotted correctly. I would say she looks like a turf sprinter, but overall just thought as though a start might be beneficial for her to really kind of tighten the screws, although she does have quite a good work pattern coming in here for Michelle Nevin. It just feels as though her horses always improve with a start. But as much as I like Izzy Sweet Girl in here, Acacia, I can't take the 2-1 just because of the entry. So I'm going to take a little bit of shot with the best price of the horses I liked in the first-time turfer in Awati.
We'll see how she handles it, Maggie. Thank you. A nice price at 8-1. And Richie, you and Maggie are on the same wavelength here.
Yeah, I just thought this horse would appreciate getting to the turf, and I thought showed some run. One thing I always look at with first-time starters, horses that have had a race, did they do any running within the context of the race? You know, and she did. She showed speed. She put in a little bit of effort. She flattened out and gave you the impression that maybe turf would be a better surface, like what I'm seeing here on the television in the warm-up. You get Kendrick Carmouche, who I think has been riding in tremendous form for an elongated period of time now.
8-1, a nice price on that one right now, as the favorite continues to be the entry, as Maggie mentioned. So tricky if you like one and not the other. Do have to take that 2-1 price, but both of them do seem to be in with a chance. I mean, 69 buyer speed figure for Izzy Sweet Girl on debut, and as Maggie mentioned, she ran on late in that effort. She was a big price that day too, and you touched on this. I mean, the 5 furlongs at Gulfstream, if you're kind of run off your feet early, it is really hard to overcome that.
Yeah, it really is, and they run those races so sharply.
Yep.
They're you know, from the go, they're hustling and going fast. Exactly. You know, even though it's only 220 yards further here at Aqueduct, the 6 furlongs on the turf, it's run completely different. You're not coming out gunning from the bell.
Favoritism now shifting over to Marco T, who's been remarkably consistent, but without being able to get the job done as of yet. Comes off of a 3rd place finish where she did have an outside post, again, going that 5 furlongs down at Gulfstream.
Well, now she gets to, you know, an inside draw, and I think, you know, she's already shown that she has really good ability, and she does have that race, so some recency as far as fitness goes.
Co-favorite now at 2-1 as they start to load in for the nightcap. Belmont at the Big A, sprinting on the turf. We'll see who gets a chance to break her maiden in here. There goes the number 8, Bewildered, unfortunately living up to her name a little bit at the starting gate.
Yeah, and you see, you know, gate crews, even though this is a first-time starter, she's had all her gate lessons here in New York. They're so good at understanding these horses' habits and what they need to do to load them as quietly as possible without riling them up more than they're already going to be, just naturally because of the race day environment.
Race 8, nightcap, Belmont at the Big A coming up. Here's Chris Griffin with the call.
Parade Ring is next. Three out. Private Property. Last to load to the outside, Belly Coupe. And in. All set. And they're off. Marco T flew out of the gate, but is going to take back now. And here's Ocean Mermaid, who takes command. Ocean Mermaid is up top, is up by a length and a half. Chasing there is Parade Ring. Also joining them is going to be Izzy, Sweet Girl, 3 wide. 4 wide, that's Bewildered. Those 4 across the course. Marco T broke on top, but is now taken back to the 5th position, right in behind this battling quartet. Then comes the purple cap of Private Property. In between horses, there is Awatea, and here comes Growth Rate moving through at the rail. It's down mid-pack. Needs some running room and just had to steady there. Growth Rate just had to check. Towards the back end of the field, there's Classic Cara. Also running on is Belly Coupe. Now the trailer. Azteca Stardust. 22.39 for the opening quarter mile, and they're chasing Ocean Mermaid. Ocean Mermaid, Parade Ring is ready to pounce towards the outside. Here comes Izzy, Sweet Girl with her run, and Marco T starts to commence the rally, and here comes Marco T and Manny Franco looking for 4. It's a 4 saddlecloth, and it's Marco T and Manny Franco. They've taken the lead. Marco T is sprinting away, is now 2.5 lengths in front. It is going to be Marco T to win the finale. Private Property up for second, then came Growth Rate, then a photo, Ocean Mermaid with Parade Ring in 1 minute 8.37 seconds.
Marco T with that recency, using it to her advantage and getting the trip and getting the win under Manny Franco.
Boy, she really finished strongly today. They left no doubt about it. When she sifted into clear, she just found another gear, jumped to her right, lead right on cue. And I know this turf course has been playing fast, Acacia, but 108 and 1 basically for maiden fillies, this was a very strong effort from Marco T. And this is a trainer, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Christophe Clement. He was actually on the Hall of Fame ballot this year. Once again, they didn't induct any trainers, which I'm surprised at because there's more than one that I think is very deserving of that honor.
Couldn't agree more. Marco T, though, at 2-1 with the win. How about the late run for the first-time starter, Private Property? Maggie expressing some thoughts that maybe she would benefit from the race. She finished well. She's going to be interesting next time out. At 11-1 today.
I agree. You know, and even though, all right, 11-1, but she actually did take some interest. And Romero Mirage has just impressed me so much this winter. I think he is riding in terrific form, and he is bringing horses in at big prices, and he's delivering on horses that are favorites. And sometimes it's easier for riders to ride long shots because there's no pressure. So they got to show that they can handle the pressure riding favorites. Romero is doing both.
Riding very well, turning heads, and speaking of riding well, Manny Franco doing exactly that. What is that for him today? Three wins? Four wins today.
Win on the day, yeah.
Fourth win on the day from Manny Franco. Just another terrific afternoon here in New York in this New York bred filly. Marco T. And once again, look, this is against Open Company. She's a New York bred filly. She wins against a big field.
Well,
Another New York bred
again,
success.
New York breds are just able to compete any place in the world. This was a big effort. How about the big prices underneath? The first-time starter we talked about, and you get a Chad Brown runner rounding out your try at 18-1.
Growth Rate, who Maggie talked to Trevor about, some interest in her getting back onto the turf, checking in third, and be interested to see if she stays sprinting or maybe does stretch out again in the future, but certainly did appear to appreciate getting back on the grass. 4-10-2-6, Marco T, breaking her maiden in start number 5. Manny Franco in the saddle. Coming up tomorrow, Manny Franco will have a date with McCulloch in the Sheep's Head Bay. That'll be one of the features on the afternoon. Plenty of exciting stakes action coming up throughout the week. Belmont at the Big A. The Sheep's Head Bay will be early in the card, race number 3, and Manny will climb aboard McCulloch, who we did see winning the Orchid last time out down at Gulfstream. It was the first start of her 5-year-old season, and I always find it fun, Richie, when we see accomplished mares like this stay in training for another year, and particularly with turf horses, as they do get a chance to stick around a little bit longer.
It's nice when owners resist that, that pull to retire mares, to start breeding them, and we get to enjoy them as fans for another year.
McCulloch will rematch with La Mejana, who made her stateside debut in the Orchid after being checked back pretty sharply towards the beginning of the race. She finished third, but just was not able to catch the powerful acceleration of McCulloch, who she has been remarkably consistent throughout her career.
She really has. I thought this race was a little bit of a departure from her normal style, where she got a little more involved a little earlier, hit the front earlier, and was able to kind of continue. Now, last year in that Flower Bowl, we talked about Parnack, basically she was victimized by Parnack setting a very slow pace. The way she ran in the Orchid, even if it's a slow pace, you feel like she can be more forward.
Right, definitely a benefit for her. She does also have her stablemate, Royalty Interest, in the race, a horse who can be forwardly placed and is coming in off a win down at Tampa as well. Could set things up a little bit better as far as the pace is concerned for McCulloch, but she is definitely a very talented racehorse, 5-year-old daughter of Frankel, now trying to make it 2 graded stakes wins in a row. And we'll be interested to see how that pace does play out with the presence of Royalty Interest in there along with Parnack.
It feels like there'll be more than ample pace for a mile and 3/8 race, and that aids McCulloch, but it also aids several of the other runners that want to be more of closing type horses. I'm sure they're conscious of the fact they would like to keep the race honest.
Absolutely. As back to today, Marco T breaking her maiden with Manny Franco in the saddle. The team all smiles as she gets the victory, the 3-year-old daughter of Cantharos.
Big effort here, very fast race. I'm really looking forward to seeing what several of these do going forward.
$6.50 winner in the nightcap today. As we are stepping aside, but don't forget, coming up on FS2, the Kentucky Derby preview show, as we'll take a deeper dive into all that's coming up for Kentucky Derby 150. In today's feature, the Affirmed Success, Rodney was victorious. New York bred getting back to the saddle in impressive impressive fashion. And as we have the Kentucky Derby preview show coming up, fierceness. Will the real fierceness please stand up? What version of him will we get this weekend? Late closing Sierra Leone will be running late, and who will get that coveted Kentucky Derby trophy?
Flightline is in full flight. Flightline turns it on at the top of the stretch, and he's in cruise control.
And Flightline takes off! Take a good look at this, because you're not going to see this too often, maybe never again. Flightline, 20 lengths clear.
World-class racehorse, world-class performance, and a world championship event.
Breeding in New York State just got a whole lot greener. Starting in 2026 with 2-year-olds and expanding in 2027 to include 3-year-olds and up, New York breds on the NYRA circuit will be offered purses matching the race's open company counterpart. That's a nearly 20% increase per race compared to 2023. Bowling season is in full swing. There's still time to take advantage of New York's better than ever state bred incentives. Visit NYRA.com/NYbreds for more info.
Zandon's poetry in motion. Big horse, but light on his feet. And he's always showed up and been consistent and been right there with some of the top horses in training. In the Bluegrass Stakes, he showed his determination and his raw ability.
It's over. Zandon wins the Toyota Bluegrass.
I feel breeders will be really blown away by what a striking, outstanding looking horse he is.
Racetrack Television Network brings you every race, from every track, on every screen, every day. With monthly packages starting as low as $5, RTN gives you great value and access to more live HD streaming and race replays than anyone. Visit RTN.tv today to sign up and watch on almost any device, including Roku and Amazon Fire. RTN has packages that start at $5 per month.
We have finally arrived. America's most famous horse race is all set for Saturday. Welcome to the Kentucky Derby preview show, 150th edition coming up this Saturday afternoon, where all eyes in the sports world will be centered under the twin spires of Churchill Downs to see who reigns supreme in the run for the roses in the first leg of the Triple Crown. Hello, everybody. I am Greg Wolf. Great to be with you. We'll go through the entire field fast as we can. All 20 runners coming up in the next 30 minutes on the show. I'll introduce my partners here in just a moment. First, let's take a look at the field that will line up on